Whoa, my cute little minions. Hi. Hello. We're here to play more Ace Attorney today. Yeah. We finished, all of the third case yesterday. It ended up being a lot different than I expected. So we just just because it was so different, I sort of accidentally ended up doing the whole thing. I don't know how this case will work out. It seemed like the ending of the third case was leading directly into the fourth, so I'm curious about how everything will play out. It's very interesting. Yes, Ian Abstract has the right idea. The omnibus was omnibusted, and now it's omnicombusting. The whole thing was lit on fire, and someone was trapped inside, in this very courtroom we're looking at right now. Quite intriguing, don't you agree? I'm super curious about where this will go now, because it seems like not always super directly, but it seems like the cases are all kind of building on each other, and I bet there will be a lot of elements that were left unresolved about each case that will end up coming back. It kind of reminds me of Ace Attorney 3, right? How a lot of elements of the cases throughout that game ended up being important in the final one. I've noticed modern Ace Attorney games really like taking after that trend where even in the quote-unquote filler cases, there's an element or two that ends up being important in the end. And I think that's a good approach. As long as you don't botch it like Ace Attorney 5 did. I did not like Ace Attorney 5's last case very much. But, I have noticed, I think Ace Attorney Investigations 2 did that sort of thing very well. So we'll see how this game does. I trust Shu Takumi a lot. I would trust his writing abilities. He's very good at it. So we're gonna start episode 4, The Adventure of the Clouded Kokoro. Ooh. Intriguing. Look at all these pictures. I recognize the High Justice's
I begin to think,
room.
Wilson, said Sholmes, turning his head languidly in my direction, that there is more to this case than that which we have observed. Indeed,
Yeah,
that
there's
there
a lot
may be
going on.
another part to this story that we are yet to discover. His eyes wandered, following the steam rising.
It's interesting that
from
the
his
third
cup of
case
herbal
had
tea,
the narration
leading
from
him
Sholmes and Wilson
to the distant memory,
when they weren't in that case. Maybe they'll be involved with the follow-up.
to the young lady collapsed on the pavement along Briar Road, and to the knife in her back.
I definitely recommend trying
Lit in the
Ghost
soft
Trick.
glow of gas lamps,
Ghost
a
Trick
most
is fantastic.
extraordinary
It's a very
scene
different
had
kind of
been
game from
set.
Ace Attorney, but it's still wonderful.
And under the cover of a light fog, the curtain had risen silently on the insoluble mystery of our invisible killer.
Oh no, someone else got stuck with a knife. It happened in the last case, now it's happening again. I wonder if we have a knife-based serial killer on our hands. 19th of February, 9:47 a.m., the British Supreme Court, Lord Chief Justice's office. So, this is the day after the previous case. Did you sleep last night, Mr. Naruhodo? No, not at all. It was an enormous hotel, wasn't it? The rooms were so luxurious. I felt like we were staying in a palace. Oh, you meant to say you try Ace Attorney because you've only played Ghost Trick. Well, I definitely recommend Ace Attorney then. At least the first 3 games. Apollo Justice is interesting, but it botches a lot of what it tries to do, I think. And I did not like 5 at all. But I'm loving this one. And I don't think... I think if you want to, like, just jump right into the newest thing, this doesn't really require knowledge of the original games. Like, all that's really relevant is that Ryunosuke Naruhodo is Phoenix Wright's great-great-grandpa or some such. And with all the gaslights twinkling, it was brighter than day even in the middle of the night. What about the enormous beds? After my time on the SS Buria, I wasn't going to waste a single inch of that space. I spent the entire night rolling from one side of the mattress to the other. Yeah, that dude was stuck in a wardrobe the entire time. Oh yes, it really was the sort of night you can only dream of normally. Except, when I learned that we owed £3 for the rooms, that dream quickly turned into a nightmare. Oops. Sorry about that. The building was so impressive and the entrance so inviting, I just wandered in without thinking. We haven't started a new trial yet, Proto-Tycoon. We won the last trial, though. You have this trilogy on Switch. That's a good collection, yeah. I feel like that's the trilogy is probably the trilogy collection is probably the best way to play those games nowadays. Definitely recommend them when you've got the time. In a lodging house in Japan, that sum of money would put a roof over your head for a whole year. I did try, but I'm afraid I couldn't help my tears when we were presented with the bill. I really am sorry. Well, of course, Protag-kun. I, Hime-sama, am always the victor. Well, never mind. We must find some more affordable lodging straight away, though. If we're not careful, our entire stipend will be used up in 10 days or less. London is a scary place. I agree. London is pretty scary. You'd never catch me there. I'm not actually scared of London, but it is scary in a sort of general sense. Good morning to you at this early hour. There he is, Mr. Sideburns. Oh, yes, we are, well. Good morning to you, Lord Chief Justice. We've come to report on the outcome of the trial at the Old Bailey yesterday. Suzato-san is amazing. She doesn't bat an eyelid, even in the presence of the imposing Lord Strongheart. Yes, I believe you had a very comprehensive initiation into British courtroom practices. Oh, yes, it was very eye-opening. Thank you. And in accordance with your instructions, Lord Strongheart, Mr. Naruhodo performed his duty to the end. Yes, I've already been apprised of events. You conducted a remarkable defense. You may consider the test passed. Oh! No longer are you a student from the Empire of Japan. You may henceforth claim to be a fully fledged lawyer. My country is delighted to welcome young talent from such a remote eastern island. Thank you very much. So, I'm a lawyer now. Now, in view of your new appointment, I have a fresh case in mind for you. I'd like you to take it on at once. I trust that you won't be a problem. Another case already? Nothing trains a lawyer better than practical experience. I'm sure. I don't sense dissatisfaction, do I? It's just that yesterday's trial ended unusually. I haven't quite come to terms with it. What's to come to terms with? The man was cleared. What more were you hoping for? It is interesting how, the last case made a point of like, dude, you just gotta clear him. You don't have to prove who actually did it. When that's usually the goal of most Ace Attorney cases, right? You gotta prove who really was the murderer, which is obviously not very realistic. So it's interesting to see this game take such a turn from Ace Attorney tradition, where in the last case, they didn't really seem to care about finding who the real murderer was. Ryunosuke obviously cares, but the court system doesn't. The culpability of the defendant has not, at the present time, been established by this court. Consequently, the jury will not be required to proffer judgment. Well, Lord Van Zieks, it's been a pleasure, so it has. And as for you, my dear fella, I couldn't have asked for a better defense. Yeah, this guy was obviously pretty dirty. I don't know if... I'm still not 100% on whether he was the actual killer, because the motive doesn't track for me, right? The guy he allegedly was accused of killing owed him money, but he was also very poor. Like, he wouldn't have gotten the money he was owed if he just, you know, like, he couldn't, like, stick him and then search his purse. The guy had nothing. He wouldn't get those 20 guineas from doing that, so the motive doesn't really track for me. So I don't know if he really did the murderer, just that he is dirty as hell and tampered with evidence to make the case go in his favor. Yeah, and McGilded's already super rich. I don't think 20 guineas is that much to him. There's gotta be more going on with that. I just can't help wondering if Mr. McGilded really was innocent. Mr. Naruhodo. It's just that I never managed to ascertain the truth. And then the trial ended. Well, you didn't let it trouble you for a second longer. Sorry? What do you mean, Lord Strongheart? Magnus McGilded passed away immediately following the trial. Oh, so I guessed he was the one in the burning carriage, but I wasn't 100% sure. Now we know. No. What? Mr. McGilded is dead? The dubs for scale. I have 19 minutes and 41 seconds until my next engagement. Time enough to talk. Yeah, at the end of the case, the bailiff's like, we're gonna let you come in to examine the carriage, because they were, like, not sure if it had been tampered with. And I figured McGilded bought off, you know, some of the police to let him in, and, you know... Yeah. Yeah, and then after the fire, the policeman in charge was like, no one was supposed to be allowed in. So obviously my theory was McGilded had, you know, bribed some people. But he ended up being the one in the carriage that was set on fire. It's interesting. So, tell me about his death. I don't understand. What happened? How can he be dead? After the trial concluded yesterday, there was a great commotion in the Old Bailey. As you'll presumably recall, an omnibus had been wheeled into the courtroom. Yeah, this was the carriage itself was the scene of the crime. Yes, of course. That was the scene of the crime which Mr. McGilded has been accused of. Precisely. Well, while the bailiff's attention was diverted by some other matter, the omnibus went up in flames. No. How could such a thing have happened? That is being investigated as we speak, but already... The police have identified a corpse found inside the charred shell of the carriage as that of Mr. McGilded. That's awful. The man must have slipped inside whilst the bailiff's attention was elsewhere. That bailiff really needs to pay more attention. And how could that have happened? That is also being investigated as we speak. Thinking back now, immediately after the trial, Mr. McGilded did mention going back into the courtroom to look at the omnibus. Well, I must be making tracks now. 'Tis time for the inspection. Sorry? What inspection? They're going to examine the omnibus again, so I'm told. I asked if I could be present for it myself. An inspection of the omnibus? Not to my knowledge. I don't believe Scotland Yard had any intention of re-examining the carriage. Pro-Tycoon, thank you for resubscribing for another month. You're on an 8-month streak. Very impressive. Your dedication goes above and beyond. But then who was Mr. McGilded talking about? Never mind that now. The Yard is making a thorough investigation. This matter is no longer any concern of yours. Leave it to the police. Poor Mr. McGilded. I don't know. I don't feel that bad for him. He was kind of a scumbag. And not the fun kind of scumbag. He was a loan shark. So, how did you find your first taste of our country's Supreme Court? Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, it was wow. Mr. Naruhodo means that the whole experience was steeped in the solemnity of Great Britain's long history. It's really a world apart from our own judicial system in Japan, which is only a few short decades old. Wow, Susanoo-san has such a way with words. And you seem to have a way of failing to find the right ones. I love the implication that this is a trait Ryunosuke apparently passed down to Phoenix, where he sometimes accidentally says the thinking words out loud. The judicial system here is the most advanced in the world. Learn all you can. The most advanced in the world, is it? Yeah, I don't know about the part where they're like, they launch their vote for guilty or not guilty as fireballs into burning scales. That seems a bit like a hazard. It was fortunate that your very first trial was a simple affair. Simple? That was simple? As I believe I mentioned yesterday morning, it was a trial you couldn't lose. Well, yeah, that's because McGilded had the whole thing rigged. I don't mean to be contrary, Lord Strongheart, but the case was anything but simple. The circumstances of the case were so incriminating, I was stunned when I first heard them. In fact, I'm still finding it hard to believe that we managed to get a favorable verdict. Is something funny? No, my apologies. However, the fact is that you did receive the not guilty verdict you set out to achieve. And that can only be attributed to exceptional talent, wouldn't you agree? Well, and cheating, kind of, on McGilded's part. Well, I don't know about that. He was rich. Those people never go to jail, silly. Well, never mind. You exceeded my expectations, I freely admit. That much, at least, is an undeniable truth. Which is precisely why I have prepared the new case for you that I mentioned before. What's going on? What was he going to say before? It's all a funny setup for you, Inosuke. You're on camera. Tell me about the new case. Could you perhaps give us some more details about the new case you mentioned? Don't tell me. It's a murder and the trial starts in 10 minutes? Don't worry. It's nothing so alarming or quite so urgent as your last assignment. In fact, this case is completely different. Oh, I see. Did he just read my mind? That is to say, no one has died as yet. And the trial will not be today. There's plenty of time to research the case thoroughly. Ah, this one will probably be more of a traditional Ace Attorney thing then, where we get to do some investigating first. Strongheart reminds you a bit of that guy with the orange shoot from Ace Attorney 1. Oh yeah, that's Rise from the Ashes is a cool case. He does have some of those vibes, doesn't he? "23 hours, 43 minutes, and 19 seconds to be precise." Huh, so the trial's tomorrow then. Is everything alright? Oh, yes. I'm just a little confused, that's all. Yesterday's trial was... well, it's left me wondering if I'm really cut out for being a lawyer. I don't know. I thought Ryunosuke did a pretty good job. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo. I don't know if I could face standing in that courtroom again after Mr. McGilded's trial. Ah, yes. I nearly forgot. There is one similarity with yesterday's case. Once again, there is currently no one to advocate for the defense. Oh. If the situation remains unchanged, the trial will start tomorrow with the defendant unrepresented. And if that happens, I need not remind you of the inevitable outcome. I just remembered his name. Orange Suit Guy was Damon Gant, which is a very good guy sounding name. If you're named Damon, if your mom named you Damon, there's nothing I can do for you. The most terrible end awaits the defendant. Yes, that's right. Here we go again. Your time is up. You'll have to excuse me. I would advise you to begin making preparations for tomorrow's trial. After all, the clock is ever ticking. No, his office isn't in Big Ben. I know, that's what I said the first time I saw it. I'm like, is this in Big Ben? But, they said it was at Whitehall, I believe. So I don't think that's where it can't be Big Ben. There is now but 23 hours, 26 minutes, and 39 seconds until the court sits. Last time he mentioned the 23 hours, he said there was plenty of time. And one more thing. Mr. Naruhodo, there is something I should like to ask you. Oh, what's that? Yesterday, you remarked upon something. That you intend to see through the will of your late compatriot, Mr. Asogi. I would be interested to hear what exactly you mean by that. Inside 34 seconds. Oh, well, Kazuma always used to say, you see, that he wanted to learn how the greatest justice system in the world works so he could change ours in Japan. Now that he's gone, I'd like to work towards that myself. And there's another thing... Oh. Another thing? Continue. on the way here on the steamship, he said something to me. He's got to speak fast. There's something very important that I have to do. Something very important, and what exactly would that be? He never had a chance to tell me. I suppose he would have done if he'd ever made it to Great Britain. You're out of time. Well, thank you for an enlightening discussion. Mr. Naruhodo, what's all this about? Mr. Asogi never once mentioned anything of the sort to me. I urge you both to focus your attention on the matter at hand. I've taken the liberty of summoning the police inspector in charge of the case. Oh, is this going to be Lestrade from the stories? He'll be able to apprise you of the details. How long has he been there? Are those French fries in his hand? So, I wish you the best of luck, and bid you farewell. Susato said because Asogi was besties with Ryunosuke instead of her. There's something very important that I have to do. Kazuma-sama, what did you mean? I wish I knew, but honestly, he never told me. Anyway, we had better talk to the detective, don't you think? Yes, you're right. I hope I'm just imagining it, but I wouldn't say he looks pleased to see us at all. Okay. Oh, we gotta examine him. I see. Oh, we can examine this guy's room. This must be the Lord Chief Justice's desk. I believe it's made of marble. It looks more like an over-the-top tombstone that's toppled over to me. I think that's your fanciful imagination at work again, Mr. Naruhodo. It feels like everything that's normally made of wood and paper at home is made of bricks and stone here. I know. That's why this place feels so overbearing, I'm sure. Tell me about this clock. Is this some kind of clock? Actually, I think we might be inside some sort of giant clock. But those gears are larger than anything you'd find on a steam locomotive, even. It's eerie. Do you think clocks are some sort of hobby of his? The Lord Chief Justice, I mean. Well, boys do enjoy fiddling around with machines, don't they? I'm not sure you could fiddle with cogs that size, and I'm certain you couldn't call him a boy. Yeah, that guy's a man. He's a full-fledged large man with large facial hair. Still, it's amazing how little noise the cogs make, considering how large they are. There's actually something quite soothing about their precise rhythm. Let's see. What's this over here? Just look at all the naughty books packed together on those shelves. They go from floor to ceiling. And they're all books that you couldn't hope to come by in Japan. It's like a dream. Yes, a very bad dream. They're not all about British law, either. There are books about the judicial systems of other Western nations. No, not that kind of naughty. It was K-N-O-T-T-Y. France, Germany, Spain, Holland? What about Russia? Why do you ask? I was wondering about asking the Lord Chief Justice how you say wardrobe in Russian. What do you think? I think perhaps it's a thought best abandoned. You're still hung up on that, huh, Ryunosuke? Look at these menacing metal giants facing each other across the room. I believe they're suits of armor. Oh, right. I thought maybe they were like the lion dogs we have in Japan guarding shrine gates. I feel like when you've got empty suits of armor, the intent might be similar. No, not at all. In fact, in Europe, suits of armor like these are always possessed by evil spirits, you know? And they roam around in the middle of the night. Really? Is there nothing you don't know, Miss Susato? This book tells me everything I need to know about everything. If you're ever unsure, just ask. Where did you get that incredible tome? I don't know if all that information is accurate. Is there anything else in here? No, I think that's it. Wait, oh, we can look over. Looks like we got everything, though. Alright, let's talk to this guy. The man's eating his fish and chips. Could we trouble you? What do you think? Lovely weather, isn't it? What's the weather got to do with anything? Ah, listen to me, you young Japanese upstart. Some frippery about the weather doesn't get every English gent eaten out of your hand, you know. But Susato-san told me it was foolproof. I'm a busy man, a very busy man. There's a crime scene to investigate, but I'm here having to give the likes of you a talking to. Oh, I'm ever so sorry. This man looks like he belongs in a Monty Python skit. Got to make his way over to the Ministry of Silly Walks or something. Oh, I'm so ever so sorry. Can you imagine what the other officers there will be saying? Haven't seen Gregson anywhere, have you? No, he's too busy with the bigwigs these days. And all because of some bumpkin who's here on a jaunt from a country I've never even heard of. Hear that ripping sound? That's my reputation at the yard going to tatters. There's no need to rip us apart as well. I don't believe we've been introduced. This is Mr. Ryunosuke Naruhodo, a defense lawyer. Eh? It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant. Eh? It's a lovely weather we're having today, isn't it? Ah, she's charmed him. It is unseasonably fine, I grant you. London winters don't see a lot of sunshine. Unbelievable. How did she pull that off? So, Lord Strongheart has asked me to fill you in on the case. My name's Tobias Gregson. Inspector Gregson to you. I'm from Scotland Yard. Oh, so he's not Lestrade. Gregson? Inspector Gregson? What's the matter with Susato-san? Does this detective's name mean something to her? I wonder if they just changed his name, which is weird, because the girl in the last case her last name was Lestrade. I thought they would do like a funny thing where she's the daughter of Holmes Lestrade. Inspector, are you perhaps the Inspector Gregson? He's hungry. You're acting like you know this man, Miss Susato, but he's a London detective. Oh, I do know him very well, in fact. Very well? Yes, he features prominently in the adventures of Sherlock Sholmes. Oh, in that publication. What's it called again? Ranst Magazine? That's right. Inspector Gregson and Mr. Sholmes enjoy a wonderful, friendly rivalry. Really? You rival the great Mr. Sholmes? That's incredible. Oh, well, I don't know about that. Mr. Sholmes isn't a professional like myself, of course, but he does come up with goods from time to time. Mr. Sholmes is equally complimentary about you, Inspector, isn't he? You've earned his highest praise. Okay, so he is our Lestrade replacement. Actually, maybe there was, like, another Inspector Holmes hung out with that was named Gregson. I don't recall. Gregson is the pick of a bad lot of all the Scotland Yarders. Those were his own words. That's his highest praise? Well, Mr. Sholmes isn't particularly known for giving compliments, you see. That he is not, and thanks to that magazine, my name's known all over London town now. That's great, isn't it? Huh. I have to admit that to start with I was a little, well, flattered by all the attention. Everyone wanted to shake my hand, and my reputation at the yard went through the roof. Well, that's wonderful. No, it is not! There's nothing more sinister than a man on the street. People are always looking at me now. They're whispering rumors about me under their breath, I'm sure. Rumors? Are you quite sure? He's changed since he started appearing in those stories. The fame's gone to his head. Stuff like that. Gosh, do you really think people are saying such mean-spirited things about you? Like I said, they whisper, so I can't exactly catch what they're saying, but I know what folk are like. I'm sure that's what they're saying. As sure as eggs is eggs. I get the feeling this detective could be very hard work. He is from Sherlock Holmes? Oh, cool. I do remember there was another police detective Holmes would hang out with sometimes beside Lestrade. Lestrade's just the more popular character, I think. But he wasn't the only one. And I guess I just forgot his name. Oh dear, perhaps a sudden rise to fame does change people. Alright, tell me about the case, Inspector. So, about the case that the Lord Chief Justice mentioned before. Nothing to tell, really. As far as we're concerned at the Yard, it couldn't be simpler. Oh dear, that probably means that as far as we're concerned as lawyers, it couldn't be more complicated. Yeah, that's how it usually works, huh? I wish you were wrong about that, but I have a nasty feeling you're right. A young woman was walking along the pavement on Briar Road when she was stabbed from behind. Fortunately, it wasn't fatal, but she's still laid up in hospital, unconscious. That's despicable. What sort of coward would attack the poor woman from behind? I suppose you would have finished whoever was off with a Susato takedown, wouldn't you? That is neither here nor there, Mr. Naruhodo. Brace yourself, Ryunosuke. You've angered her now. Anyway, after something of a whirlwind investigation, the criminal was arrested. He barely had time for a cup of tea after the incident took place, to be honest. So, there must have been something left at that scene that led you directly to the culprit? Or perhaps a reliable witness who recognized the person in question. Let me... excuse me. Let me stop you right there. You're wasting your time on this one. Sorry? There's nothing you can do. There's no way to help the bloke now. Why ever not? Simple. The prosecutor that's been assigned to the trial tomorrow is Lord Beric von Zeeks. Have I been reading his name wrong the whole time as Baron and not Beric? That's embarrassing. No, sounds like you've heard of him then. Oh yes, we are very familiar with Lord von Zeeks. Believed to be the harbinger of death itself, the Reaper of the Bailey. Alright, tell me more about Zeeks. I want to learn more about this man, intimately. Lord Beric von Zeeks, who we faced in court only yesterday. Mr. McGilded told us about him before the trial, didn't he? When von Zeeks stands for the prosecution, they call the accused his sacrificial lambs. He's very intense. Courtroom Virgil is aware. And in every single trial in which he's been the prosecutor, the accused has been damned. This Reaper of the Bailey nickname, I suppose he's earned that because every defendant he advocates against is found guilty, is that it? Well, if that's the case, we should inform you, Inspector, that in yesterday's trial against Lord von Zeeks, Mr. Naruhodo secured a verdict of not guilty. And what of it? Oh, well, I think that means that even against the Reaper of the Bailey, it's not impossible to save the defendant. No, you really don't have a clue, do you? What do you mean? What happened to that bloke in the end, eh? He's dead. Ah, Magnus McGilded came a cropper in that omnibus when it went up in flames. So you can't really say you saved a defendant, can you? What are you saying? Look, if Van Zeeks could get the dirt to stick on everyone, he'd be a miracle worker. Well, that's not how it goes. He doesn't work miracles, he works magic. Black magic. I'd have a good long think about that if I were you. Well, that's interesting information. Are we really supposed to believe that? I like for his fish eating animation, he just, like, it doesn't, like, just appear when he's eating more. He, like, squeezes the bag and makes more pop up. His infinite bag of fish and chips. Actually, this is kind of making me want some fish and chips. Right, well, I've filled you in as requested, and I'm very nearly out of chips. So I'll be heading back to the crime scene now. I'm still carrying out a few investigations there. It was Briar Road, you said, didn't you? Where the incident took place. That's correct, ma'am. And if you head over there to the holding cells, you can meet the criminal himself. You branded him a criminal already? He's as good as. Shaking like a leaf in the cell he is. It'll give you a chuckle, if nothing else. He's inmate 53. Speak to the jailer and he'll show you the way. Inmate 53. Thank you. This is where we get the classic Ace Attorney talking to the defendant in the jail theme. So there's no helping anyone against the Reaper of the Bailey, they say. Is something troubling you, Mr. Naruhodo? Yeah, it sure is a funny coincidence that, everyone who gets a not guilty verdict against Barrick, just dies. What a funny coincidence. How funny. How funny that happens. To tell the truth, when I recall the trial yesterday, I can't stop myself from shaking. The idea of facing the Reaper in court again is... Well, if you think it's too much for you, there's no shame in turning the case down. That takes courage, too. But if the man they've arrested is innocent, you could well imagine he would be shaking like a leaf in his cell. And I, for one, wouldn't find the sight of that funny. So, if I'm honest, I'm still reeling from the shock of yesterday's events myself. And I'm really not sure if I'll be able to help this man, whoever he is. But I'd like to try, so I think I'm going to make some inquiries. Will you help? Ryunosuke is a really good guy. I like him. Did you really think that you had to ask? After all, I am your judicial assistant. Thank you. So then, shall we? Yes. Let's go. Ryunosuke is a fun protagonist. He's got a lot more conviction right off the bat than Phoenix did, I think. Obviously, Phoenix started with a certain level of conviction. He went through law school and everything. It's more like moral conviction, I guess? Like, Phoenix cared about getting his defendants off at first, but, he was more like, well, that's my job. Where Ryunosuke's very morally into it. Phoenix cares a lot, too, but it took some time for him to really get into that, I think. I think we're gonna go to the prison first. We'll go to the prison first, and I think that'll give us information we need to investigate the crime scene. Yes, idealistic's a good word. Ryunosuke is more idealistic right off the bat than Phoenix was, I think. 19th of February, local prison, cell 9. Quite the humane conditions they loved putting their prisoners in. So these are British prison cells. Oh, they're ghastly. It feels just like a dungeon. Yes, and having experienced it in Japan myself, I can assure you that our wooden cells feel a lot cozier than these cold stone walls. Oh, don't, Mr. Naruhodo. You're making it seem worse. Apparently, our client is in the cell here. But it's so dark at the back there, I can't make him out. I wonder what he's like. Inmate 53, your legal representative is here to see you. Stop hiding at the back of the cell and show your face at once. Am I a cat as yet with no name? Calling me by a number, it's utterly, unbelievably, unjustly unreasonable. I refuse to answer. Uh-oh. We've got a funny man on our hands, I think. Mr. Naruhodo, what do you think is going on here? I have no idea, but I wasn't just hearing things, was I? That tirade of complaints was in Japanese. Oh. Oh, I remember. Okay. I remember hearing about this guy. He's a real Japanese writer. Excuse me, but who? Shush! Quiet! They're all around, hiding. I know they are. They're watching, listening. Even now. I can sense it. He's got some Edgar Allan Poe to him, too. I don't know if that's intentional. Like, he has a similar... He kind of looks like pictures of Edgar Allan Poe a little bit. You can Google his name, and one of the pictures is artwork for this video game. It's the fate effect, huh? History teachers don't Google Astolfo. There you are. You've come to curse me, haven't you? Don't try to hide it. You're a ghost. A ghost? We mean you no harm, prisoner-san. Are you... Japanese by any chance? Oh, his eyes turned less sketchy. This is beyond my wildest dreams. I like his eyes look sketchy and his eyebrows are like ink brushes. That's funny. Forgive me for that outburst before. I'm so sorry. Oh, it's fine. We were just a little surprised, that's all. Imagine it! It's been 12 long months since I left my hometown, and here I am in a frightful fix in a foreign land. It's very emotive, this guy. So hearing the sweet, sentimental tones of a compatriot's voice here in this damp, dark hellhole's, most monumentally moving moments. This dude is hyped up. Who could have guessed that this new client Lord Strongheart assigned to us would turn out to be a fellow Japanese? Ah, what compassion my fellow countrymen show. To dispatch a first-class lawyer all the way from Japan to defend a mere foreign student. Noble, nurturing, never-failing Nippon. A first-class lawyer? Oh dear, I think there's been something of a misunderstanding here. I wonder, would you be so kind as to tell us what's happened? Why you've been detained as a suspect, for example? Yes, I can, I will. Shan't stay sullen and silent. This dude's like posing. He's doing some Beautiful Joe shit. I'm not quite sure I understand what he means, but he seems happy. Yes, he does. I just hope he actually has a good reason to be. Thank you for your cooperation. I am a lawyer, as you said. My name is Ryunosuke Naruhodo. And I am Naruhodo-san's judicial assistant, Susanna Mikotoba. I am a visiting student sent here by our government. Notably notoriously named Natsume. Sosuke Natsume. Okay. He looks like Jonathan Joestar's father a little bit. Soseki Natsume-san? What an unusual name. Call me Soseki, please. I'm a poet, you see, a writer of haiku. It's something of a nom de plume. A nom de plume? You mean an alias? That's right, Naruhodo-san. No, don't be so prosaic. It's much more refined than that. And haiku? That really reminds me of home. Did I hear you say that you were a visiting student sent over here by the government? Yes, that's right. A year ago, I was told to go and study English. First, I had to suffer that misery, and now this. It's beyond the pale. Suffer that misery? Did you not want to study here? No, I mean, I've had an interest in Great Britain for some years, of course. Oh. Yeah, Natsume was a real guy. He was a poet. But just because the government tells you to do something doesn't mean you can do it? No. What do you mean? If they'd told me to study English literature, that I could have understood. That's my field. But no, they told me to study the English language. Utterly, unbelievably, unjustly unreasonable. This dude, the man is stanced up at all times. I see. Only the other day, I was told to spend a report about my first year here. I tendered a blank piece of paper. Wise words on white washi. I assume washi is like the Japanese word for paper? You must be a man of great standing. Oh yes, so I am often told. And often like to be told, it seems. Alright, let's find out what's going on here. Could you perhaps tell us exactly why you've been arrested, Soseki-san? I didn't do it! I didn't commit that atrocious murder! Murder? Oh, no, it's alright. The woman didn't actually die, did she? But she was stabbed with a knife, right before my eyes! Before your eyes? You mean you saw the attacker? I didn't see anyone. What? If I'd seen the person who did it, do you think I'd be locked up in here? Oh dear, it seems this case is becoming rather complicated. Already, we're like 5 minutes in. Why? Excuse me. I have to take sippies every now and then. Why me? Why me? Why did that silly woman have to be stabbed in front of me? It's the curse of London. It's incredibly, inexcusably, irritatingly inconvenient. So, Soseki-san was there at the scene, but he didn't see the attacker. It's vital that we find out more about the case. Alright, tell me what actually happened here, bud. It was an accursed evening just after the snow had started to clear and heavy with fog. I'd been to the bookshop to buy some books, and I was on my way back to my accursed lodgings. Sure the bookshop wasn't accursed too? As I was walking along that accursed pavement, I could make out the sole silhouette of another ahead of me. A woman wearing a green overcoat she was, and just as I went to overtake her, she suddenly let out a little scream and collapsed onto the cold, hard slabs of stone at my feet. This guy likes alliteration a lot. How terrible. Oh, sorry, how terrible. I called out to the woman, but she didn't move. It was like a ghostly, ghoulish, grim graveyard. Slight exaggeration there, perhaps. I was terrified. I had to get away from there. So I ran, as fast as my legs would carry me back to my accursed lodgings. That's not good. They'll say it was shameful, I know, to run away like that. Yeah, he's very expressive, he's funny. Tell me, Soseki-san, was the victim an acquaintance of yours? Don't be ridiculous! Do you think I know any of these fair-haired English? And a young woman at that? I'm diffident, shy, timid, unsure. I can't talk to people! I see. A young woman, unknown to Soseki-san. And at the time it happened, who else did you see nearby? Did anybody pass you? Regrettably, apart from myself and the woman, I didn't see a soul. No one? Oh, great. So the victim was unknown to you, and there was nobody else on the street at the time. That creates something of a conundrum, doesn't it? What conundrum? Yeah, what's the motive, first of all? Can we establish a motive, at least? What do you mean, Susato-san? What's the conundrum? Well, if what Soseki-san has just told us is true, there's something I can't explain. He says that he didn't know the victim, and that there was no one else at the scene. Then he apparently fled without having been seen. I did! But if that's the case, surely this man has to be the culprit? Ah, you! What did you just say? Nothing! I didn't say anything. Oops, perhaps I thought that a little loudly. Actually, that's not what was troubling me. What I was thinking was, how did Soseki-san actually come to be arrested? Sorry? He didn't touch the victim, and there was nobody at the scene to see him. So how did the police ever discover that he was there in the first place? Oh yes, she's right. It was him. That accursed great detective. He led the police to me. Of all the bad luck. Accursed great detective? Could it be? I shall never forget that man's name as long as I live. With his haughty laugh and his self-proclaimed greatness. British, brash, big-headed busybody, be gone! May you be cursed until the end of your days, Hairlock Sholmes! I knew it. He's back, everybody. Our funny man is back. Mr. Sholmes? Alright, tell me about Hairlock Sholmes. Well, I didn't expect to hear that name from this man's lips, that's for sure. It was the morning after that nightmare had unfolded on the pavement before me. I was gnawing on a sliver of hard cheese when some men suddenly burst in through the door. They started shouting at me. This is the police. Put the weapon down. Yes, it was a thin sliver, and yes, it was hard, but I wasn't eating a weapon. Disgusting dietary discrimination devils. You clearly had a trying morning yesterday. And there he was, in the middle of all the policemen, grinning like a Cheshire cat. That Herr Sholmes. It's actually just Herlock Sholmes. He's English. I've since found out that he's a famous name in detection here in London. Yes, the great detective is really very well known. And his overly sharp line managed to deduce my whereabouts, apparently. He thinks I'm the knife-wielding madman. Me, this weak, stooped kitten of a man. Don't call yourself kitten, dude. Have some self-respect, just a little bit. I wonder what great deduction process led him to this conclusion this time. Do you mean to say that Mr. Sholmes' deduction was the only reason the police arrested you? That would be really most unreasonable. Well, the thing is, I was thrown into a panic when they barged their way in. Of course you were. There's only natural. I was terrified and trembling, and they kept throwing question after question at me in impossible English. Fiendish foreign flim-flammery. Well, where you are in England, you can't really blame them for questioning you in English. Good point, but my mind went blank. I knew I had to answer, but I didn't know what to say. So I just kept repeating things like, yes, I do, and I'm fine. The next thing I knew, I was in manacles, and before I knew it, I was thrown in here. Oh dear, I'm afraid that's hardly surprising. I'm fine? He's not fine now. Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. Oh, you can just call me Naruhodo, and when we're speaking English, a simple Mr. is more than enough. Oh, yes, alright, yes. They've really got to me. This country is poisoning my mind. But please, I beg you to defend me in court tomorrow. Yeah, England is like that. My mind, even my incredibly powerful, gigantic mind, would be in a little bit danger in England. That's why I can't go there. You can tell them what really happened. You'll do it, won't you? Well, Why? Why is it so hard to say yes to me? Well, the thing is, I'm just a student like yourself on a study tour. A student? I've defended a case in the Old Bailey, only one though. But at this moment in time, I really don't know what I'm supposed to believe in. I'm confused about what justice in this country even means. Oh, Naruhodo-san. I'm not even the foreign student who is supposed to be here. I'm a sort of locum lawyer, I suppose. But that armband! That's the mark of a defense lawyer from our great empire. It's a keepsake from the man who should have been here. He was my best friend. A keepsake? I know exactly what they're saying about me. Oh, what do you mean? The lawyers, all the British defense lawyers, they won't defend me. Goodness, why? Why do you say that? For the same reason as you noted before. When it happened, there was only the victim and myself around, and I ran away from the scene of the crime. I'm not a fool. I know it looks as though I must be the culprit. It must be very hard for you, Soseki-san. And anyway, I'm a student from overseas. I'm just a foreign nobody to them. Someone not to be trusted. I heard them openly laughing about me before in my earshot without any compunction at all. Any trial for this man would be a waste of time, they said, and of course the foreigner did it. Oh, of course. Can't go a minute too long without any racism. They even had the gall to say the man doesn't understand half of what's being said anyway. That's awful. They're wrong! I've studied more English than half of the policemen out there on the streets. I've traveled halfway around the world to learn about these people's country and its great history. But no one here wants to listen to a man with a strange accent. They all hate me. So, at the very least, I'd like to entrust my fate to someone who can listen to me in my native tongue. Very interesting. This is a very interesting turn of events. It's really hammering it in, huh? That the dealing with racism stuff. It's pretty hard. You could do it, couldn't you? When I look into your eyes, I can see it. I can see what you've been through. Soseki-san, it's just that... Give me a little time, please. Hmm? I'll do what I can, for the time being. What do you mean? We shall investigate the case as thoroughly as possible. If we can find some clues, it will give us a much better chance, I'm sure. Oh, yes, yes, thank you. I'll be here, all alone, waiting for you. Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire? We should be going then, Naruhodo-san. We have a case to prepare for. Check this out, though. Oh, I can't present my student badge anymore. That's a shame. Yes, yes, the symbol of our great empire's first-rate lawyers. Which means, of course, you'll stand by my side. You'll defend me. Oh, no, sorry. That wasn't why I was showing it to you. Then why else would you show me that? Oops. In hindsight, that probably wasn't the best idea. Always gotta show off your badge, chat room. That's rule number 1. Alright, let's go check out the scene of the crime. I like the background art. Also, one thing I've been noticing in the game, because the localization director talked about it in an interview when the game was being released in English, I really like this touch where the Japanese characters, when they're alone together, will use traditional honorifics, but when they're talking to characters of other nationalities, they'll use English ones like Mr. and Miss. It's cool. It's a nice touch. It shows when they're speaking Japanese amongst themselves and speaking English. Now, Strand is another Sherlock Holmes reference. Another Sherlock Holmes reference, too. 19th of February, Briar Road. This background art is really pretty. So this is where it happened. Briar Road. Ah, look, Mr. Naruhodo. Look at that regulation metal helmet. It's unmistakable. The men of Scotland Yard are here. They're investigating as we speak. Oh, that actually, makes me question another thing. In the last case, the omnibus had a sign on it that said Phoenix Wright Omnibus on it. I wonder if that was in the original Japanese, or if they changed it for the English. That is their job, But Mr. Naruhodo, to see one with my own eyes. They're often depicted in the adventures of Sherlock Holmes, but I never dreamed I'd ever come to this close. To a real Bobby's helmet. What? The helmet? Of course. I have to try on one day. Well, I hope your Hattie dream comes true. Ah, it's Gregson. What's the Japanese delegation doing here? Oh, Inspector Gregson. This isn't on the tourist trail, as I'm fairly sure you're well aware. Yes, of course. We're here to investigate. So you've been to the holding cells, then? What do you make of the criminal? He's not a criminal, as you put it, Inspector. He's a suspect. Huh. We'll see about that. You Japanese like to stick together, I suppose. Well, do what you will. Doesn't bother me. The bloke's in court tomorrow, whatever happens, and the verdict's a foregone conclusion. This stone-cold air of rejection. Take heart, London at this time of year is full of stone-cold air. That makes it worse somehow. Alright, well, let's see what this guy has to tell us. But first, check this out. Inspector Gregson, could I show you this? Am I supposed to know what that is? I've never seen that insignia before. It's worn by defense lawyers in the Empire of Japan as a symbol of their profession. In other words, it's a worthless trinket here in Great Britain. Oh no, it's very important to me. It shows my spirit. An English gentleman keeps things like his spirit very much to himself, I'll have you know. You gotta show your Yamato Damashi, Ryunosuke. Breathe more. Duck left, duck right. You gotta breathe, Ryunosuke. Yamato Damashi. Don't give up, Mr. Naruhodo. It's too late. He's crushed my spirit already. Your Japanese spirit, Ryunosuke. Alright, tell me about Scotland Yard. Tell me about Scotland Yard, Inspector. It's like I'm reading her mind. Ever since I read about it in the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, I've been fascinated by the place. The Yard is the most sophisticated policing organization you'll find anywhere in the world, ma'am. Oh, and you know I've always dreamt of wearing a real Bobby's helmet. It does make them look the part. Seeing that policeman there with his helmet on, you certainly get the sense that this is a man who will take no nonsense in his duty of protecting the city. Or get scared if you have a butter knife, you know. Oh yes, doesn't he look wonderful? Being a London Bobby is hard going, I can tell you. Oh, really? First thing in the morning, you know what he does? Goes round and rouses all the laborers on his beat so they can get off to work. And put down the unions, of course. What? He wakes people up? Yup. Raps on their windows with a long pole. Did myself going back a bit. I had no idea. The Bobby works for the people of the town. It's just another one of his duties. After that, he starts tirelessly patrolling the streets all day long. He has to cover 20 miles a day. That's the regulation distance. I can't really imagine how far that is, but it sounds like a long way. Let me see. 20 miles? That's approximately the distance from Tokyo to Yokohama. On foot? That's definitely taking things a step too far. And when it gets dark, of course, he has the important job of lighting all the gas street lamps. Oh my. And I suppose in between all those duties, Bobbies are expected to investigate cases as well? And chase after criminals trying to evade the law. I'm not sure you could call it in between exactly. More alongside, but yes. They're expected to handle the jobs as well. We do have men keeling over from time to time, I admit. I'd always dreamt of wearing one of those helmets, as I said. But it's with a heavy heart that I shall have to relinquish that dream to you, Mr. Naruhodo. Your heavy heart will be my heavy head if you do. It happened at around 5 in the evening 2 days ago, just there on that open bit of pavement. The victim, a young woman, was stabbed with a blade from behind. Is it right that the lady is still unconscious now? You mentioned that she's being treated in hospital. I never said she was a lady. Truth is, unless she comes around pretty smartish, we won't be able to find out much about her at all. I suppose that means they haven't been able to take a statement from her, of course. Here's a map of the local area I happen to have on me. You can take it if you want. Really? Are you sure? It's Yard policy to give lawyers defending suspects the odd bit of information to go on. I haven't actually accepted the job yet, but still. Thank you, Inspector. We gratefully accept. I'm sure this will be very important. Tracking whoever's movements. Anyway, as far as we know, there was no one else on the scene other than the victim and your fellow countrymen. So who did it, do you think? Not much of a head-scratcher, is it? Well, I know Mr. Natsume is also claiming not to have seen anyone else around, but just because he didn't see anyone, it doesn't mean we can be sure that nobody else was present. I'm sorry to have to tell you, but we most certainly can be sure. How? Because, ma'am, the precise moment of the stabbing didn't go unnoticed. What? We have 2 very reliable witnesses, no less. Ah, yeah, just like all the reliable witnesses in the last cases who reliably saw the exact moment someone was killed, and then very unreliably actually hadn't. It was a typical foggy London day, and your client obviously didn't see them. There were witnesses now? Tell me about the witnesses. I want to know about them. Let me know where I can harass them. Who are these witnesses, Inspector? A fellow and his wife, and the man's one of the most reliable and respected citizens in all of London. He's a copper from Scotland Yard. Ah! A policeman? That might change things. And this policeman just happened to be there at the exact moment the woman was attacked? Nothing peculiar about that, ma'am. Part and parcel of being a bobby. Catching them banging the act and all that. Hello, innocent bystander. Do you think it might be possible for us to ask that policeman a few questions? Be my guest. You can ask him what you like. In court tomorrow? Oh, I've no doubt he'll be summoned as a witness. So that'll give you something to look forward to. That's that, then. He's got no intention of letting us meet the man beforehand, it seems. I also do not trust the bobbies. A policeman witnessed the incident. But you know, public opinion and all that. It's going to be important in the trial as we have a jury. As your judicial assistant, I must warn you that this could make our job very difficult indeed. Yes, as a non-judicial assistant, I could have warned me of that, too. Oh, yes, one more thing, Inspector. What? The person who led you to the suspect. I hear that was Mr. Herlock Sholmes. What are you bringing him up for? Was it something I said? The color is drained from his cheeks. Let's ask about Mr. Sholmes and then the trial. Who did you hear that name from? Oh, well, it was Mr. Natsume who mentioned it. He said that Mr. Sholmes was with the police when they entered his lodgings. It's sure it was a result of one of Mr. Sholmes' inspirational great deductions. Fiddle-faddle! The man's an amateur, and I'm getting sick and tired of him shoving his mug everywhere. Oh, I don't know where he gets his information from, but he turns up at the scene of the crime, wanders around, spouting incomprehensible rubbish, and before you know it, he claims to have solved the case. Yes, he's quite astounding, isn't he? He is a great help to Scotland Yard, though, isn't he? Gibble gabble. Ever seen this before? Oh, yes, that's Franced Magazine. The wonderful publication in which the adventures of Herlock Sholmes appears. Yes, well, that wonderful publication, as you put it, sees fit to include several of the Yard's detectives in its stories. And the so-called Great Detective makes a mockery of all of us. If you ask anyone at the Yard, it's a misadventure to include any in Herlock Sholmes to be included in any Herlock Sholmes tale at all. Well, I suppose there is an element of that. We work our socks off, every one of us, only to be frumped by the public thanks to that obnoxious detective. The man's as dangerous to us at Scotland Yard as he is to all of our criminals. That can't really be true, can it, Inspector? Clearly the great detective and the police have a complex relationship. Let's learn about tomorrow's trial. That twitchy Japanese bloke goes on trial tomorrow. Are you going to defend him or not? Well, makes no difference to me, but I will just say this. No London lawyer with his salt would touch that case with a barge pole. Cop hates man who actually solves crimes. That's right, you're right. Because of the prosecution is being handled by the Reaper of the Bailey, you mean? There's no way to save the man now. It's a waste of time trying. It is all a bit strange, though. Sorry? The Reaper. He hasn't appeared in court once for a good few years now. Yes, we did hear something to that effect. And the only people he usually bothers with are the real scum. The master criminals. The violent ones. The master criminals? The violent ones? Ooh, I wonder if we'll get a Moriarty. That's right, he handpicks his victims. Only deals with those guaranteed to go to the gallows for their sins. Wow, how curious that Beric van Zijks specifically chooses cases where the crime is particularly heinous, and if they get innocent, they just end up mysteriously dying. What a curiosity. What a strange coinkydink. Multiple coinkydinks. Over multiple years. In a pattern. But Mr. Natsume wouldn't hang for what he's accused of, surely. That's just my point, Sunshine. Yes, the young woman was stabbed, but it didn't kill her. Couldn't even say the intent was there. So this isn't the sort of case I'd be expecting the Grim Reaper to want to sink his teeth into, for want of a better phrase. Well, it's not exactly a minor infraction, is it? No, there's got to be more to it. Some reason he's taken an interest. Really? What sort of reason, Inspector? You think I can tell what's going on inside the head of that Lord of Darkness? Yeah, okay, we get it. He's a vampire. Chill out. You'll have to ask him yourself at tomorrow's trial. Are we really going to have to face the Reaper again? The Lord of Darkness, as he put it. I mean, he does like throwing wine glasses, so you know. Well, I don't think we're going to get any more useful information out of the detective. Yeah, it kind of makes him seem less impressive when you think about it that way, huh, innocent bystander? That Barrick von Zeeks just chooses the people who are obviously guilty and then wins? Mr. Naruhodo, can I make a suggestion? Oh, yes, what is it? Well, it seems to me that we must speak with him about this. By him, do you mean Mr. Sholmes? Yes, Mr. Herlock... Oh, I almost slipped up. Mr. Herlock Sholmes, exactly. Look at those shining eyes. You just can't wait, can you? Well, Mr. Natsume did blame Mr. Sholmes for all of this, didn't he? Yes, he did. He really did. Which makes him an involved party in the case. Are you just going to ignore that? I hope not. I assure you, it's not simply my selfish desire to meet with Mr. Sholmes again. The trouble is, we have no idea of the man's address, even. It's Baker Street! How do you know that? It's in the stories, of course. 221B Baker Street, the most famous address in the world. Oh, I see. Well, there's nothing to stop us from going, I suppose. We'd better try to find our way there before Susato-san gets any more excited and unpredictable. Hurrah! I'll summon a carriage! So we're to have a reunion already. With the great detective, Mr. Herlock Sholmes. Yeah, this is the earliest form of doxing, huh? Let's examine the scene first. E. Oh, that's a Scotland Yard carriage. They use vehicles like that to rush to crime scenes and cart away criminals. You're very well informed, aren't you? It's a long-been dream of mine to ride one of those through the streets of London. Well, just pick up a stone and throw it through one of the windows then. But that would mean being arrested in order to ride it, wouldn't it? Still, if it's the only way... Help me find a good stone! No, I wasn't serious! I respect Susato's conviction. Tell me about the snowman. What a delightful snowman! I didn't realize the English had a tradition of making snowmen as well. It looks a little creepy, though. Oh, it has a scarf, look! You need one if you're out in this freezing cold all the time. I wish I had one. I'm afraid our budget is somewhat frozen at the moment, too. We certainly can't afford a scarf. Surely the snowman here wouldn't miss his. The person who made the snowman certainly would. Yes, I know, you're right. Anyway, even if I borrowed it, it wouldn't do much to warm my neck, would it? It's covered in snow. What are you looking at? That's one of the officers from Scotland Yard. The police are making sure the crime scene is undisturbed. I have a feeling that if we wander too close, we'll be clapped in irons. I think perhaps you're being a little overcautious. We've done nothing wrong, so we have no cause for concern. Oh no, I'm not getting caught out again. Twice is enough. Twice I've found myself in handcuffs despite not knowing a thing about what was going on. Yes, you've had some dreadful experiences. I'm sure it's that wide-eyed look of panic you're so prone to. It does you no favors at all. Ah. Painful. This patch of pavement must be where the incident occurred. Yes, it's a very wide open space, isn't it? That's true. I can't see anywhere an attacker would have been hiding. Oi! Where's your investigating license? What are you foreigners doing here? Ah! Oh, just investigating the scene, officer. Conspiring with that mustache fella from Japan, are ya? Conspiring? Come here to destroy evidence, have ya? Get out of here before I give you an oidin. Go on! Oi! You shoot us away like rats. Yes, we should give him a wide berth, I think. What a disappointing experience. Let's see what's over here. There are piles of snow on the pavement here and there, but the road itself is covered in carriage tracks. It seems to be carriages often travel down Briar Road. It soon disperses all the snow. I slipped over when I was walking down the pavement earlier. It seems like it would be far safer to walk on the road instead. Oh, but you're rather small, Mr. Naruhodo, and dressed all in black. I worry coachmen might not see you, and you could be flattened by horses. She just called him a manlet. Well, thank you for the rather small concern. You're just a stupid little twink, Mr. Naruhodo. You'd be crushed instantly. The clouds look so big and heavy in the sky, don't they? And with the dense fog as well, everything looks hazy. Well, it is known as Foggy London Town. I can just make out some sort of spire through the fog. Looks like it's still being built, though. Aha! Yes, that must be the Crystal Tower, being built by for the great exhibition that's to open in 6 months' time. Apparently, it's going to be very striking, glazed on all sides, and the symbolic centerpiece of the exhibition. It's to be the largest exposition in history, is it? I can't even begin to imagine it. What's this? Oh, look at the windows of that building there. Are you sure they're windows? Yes, but they're all filled in with bricks. Oh, you're right. I wonder why. Perhaps it's an empty property where nobody lives at the moment. There's smoke coming from the chimneys, though. Oh dear, everything still feels very foreign. There's so much we have to learn about this place. Huh. I do wonder why that is. Is it just because it's so cold they have to brick up the windows during winter? There's a rather typical old brick building, isn't it? I'm sure it has a long and interesting history. Well, time certainly seems to have taken its toll on the place. It's crooked and sagging all over. In fact, it looks in decidedly worse shape than the other houses around here. We must find some cheap lodgings ourselves as soon as possible. Yes, you're right. Cheap, but ideally with reasonably level floors. Oh, a British bicycle, look! Although, the wheel is so misshapen, I'm sure it couldn't possibly be ridden anymore. Watch out, PM might steal this one. Someone must have been doing some breakneck cycling. It seems bicycles have become extremely popular in London recently. There's even a moment to change women's dress to allow them to ride as well. The bicycle fad won't last. I don't see why everyone would want to ride something like that. Goodness, do you dislike bicycles? No, not at all. I mean, it's not that I dislike them exactly. It's just that any occupation that involves taking both your feet off firm ground seems reckless. If you'd ever tried walking on stilts and fallen into a river, I know you'd agree with me. We'll have to hire a bicycle sometime. You can sit behind me while I ride you around. That's cute. That's a cute image. This building does look kind of messed up, like the windows here are broken. I wonder if that's important to the case. I don't think there's anything else to examine. So, let's go talk to Mr. Sholmes. Da 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 da. Ooh, we get an anime cutscene.
Thank you very much. It's just up there overlooking the street. Good day. Thanks again.
There it is.
This is it. The residence of Mr. Herlock Sholmes.
I like all the plants. Yeah, this is about what I expected. 19th of February, 12:53 p.m. Sholmes' suite. So this is where the great detective makes his living. It feels surreal to be here somehow. Is it as described in the stories, Miss Susato? Susato-san? She looks so happy. Many, many famous cases have been solved here in this very room. Oh, I suppose they must have been, yes. I've never read the story, so it's hard to get quite as excited about it as she seems to be. The detective chases the villain relentlessly as he disappears into the fog down an unlit London street. Oh, the thrill of it, the romanticism. Can't you feel your heart thumping in your chest? Can't you, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, I suppose I can, yes. Where's this cocaine stash? Oh, you maybe later. So, if you don't mind, I'll just stand here and soak up the atmosphere for a while longer. Please, don't mind me. She's obsessed. Well, it looks like our detective friend isn't home at present. He leaves his door unlocked, I guess. Excuse me, is anybody home? Oh, do we have a visitor? Oh, it's the girl. Hello, is it a big new case for Mr. Sholmes? Hello. Wait, aren't you? Oh, how rude of me. I'll go and make some tea at once. I'm sure it's the same girl from the end of the trial yesterday with the bazooka. Miss Susato, did you see that girl who was just here? Oh yes, isn't it truly extraordinary? To think that the King of Bohemia came to this very room to ask Mr. Sholmes to take on his case. The King of Bavaria? King Wilhelm Goderic the Sigismund von Ornstein, of course. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Forget the adventures of Herlock Sholmes for a moment and look over there. The tea's brewed, and I have a freshly baked cake as well. Ah, it's you! I knew it. Susato-san recognizes her too. She has a very large head. Ah, there you are. And taking that with you as well. I was looking forward to the trial run of my experimental smoke grenade launcher. Oh, good day to you. I'm, well, the inventor, I suppose, of that machine. Well, we already have Watson, kind of. His name was changed to Wilson, but he got owned, so I guess she's new Watson. It's the girl who turned up at the end of Mr. McGilded's trial in the defendant's antechamber. I've never met a lawyer from the Far East before. Or you, having to get straight to work when you've only just arrived in London. Oh, yes, it was challenging. Well, try this tea. It's my special blend, you know. Oh, thank you. Is tea supposed to look that color? Oh my, what a fragrant yet mellow flavor. Hooray, it's a winner! I tried blending different leaves designed to alleviate fatigue, you see. You must be exhausted after your long voyage here, and you have another ticklish trial tomorrow. Oh, and you're to defend a Japanese man. I do wish you lots and lots of luck. Did Mr. Sholmes tell you about us by any chance? Oh, you know Hurley, do you? Don't call him that. Please don't call him that. I'm begging you. Hurley? Mr. Sholmes to you, surely. Mr. Sholmes was a fellow passenger on the boat that brought us to Great Britain, you see. Was he really? Well, I had no idea. I'm afraid Hurley's, it hurts, out on an errand again today, even though he's just returned from overseas. Wait a minute. We met this girl for the first time ever yesterday after the trial, and only briefly at that. How on earth did she know so much about us? Did she deduce all these things, do you think? And perhaps more to the point, Why is she here in Mr. Sholmes' suite? Oh, silly me. I haven't introduced myself, have I? It's a great pleasure to meet you both. My name is Iris Wilson. I live here together with Hurley. Iris, is it? What a lovely name. What? What's the matter? No, wait, this can't be. Did you say that your name is Wilson? What's the matter with Susato-san? Why is she so flustered all of a sudden? Yes, that's right. And what are your names? Oh, I'm Ryunosuke Naruhodo, a lawyer from Japan. Oh, sorry. I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant, Susato Mikotoba. It's wonderful to meet you. Lovely, Susie and Runo. Got it. Oh, she anglified her names. Great. Susie and Runo? There's more to this girl than meets the eye. I have so many questions for her, I don't know where to start. Yes, and so do I. Okay. Hey, take a look at this. Iris, could I show you this? Oh, how exciting! What is it? Tell me all about it. Oh, actually, I was hoping you might be able to tell me something about it, if anything comes to mind. Why would it? Well, no, I suppose it wouldn't. Tell me, I want to hear everything. This hasn't gone according to plan. He always expects people to be mean to him about it. He didn't know what to do when someone was actually interested. It was you that we ran into yesterday, wasn't it? At the Old Bailey. Yes, that's right. You were ever so helpful. Thank you so much. Oh no, not at all. I'm so sorry we couldn't have been more welcoming. Though at the time, we did have a rather large gun pointed at us. Ah, there it is. Like this? Thinking back now, you left with Miss Lestrade in tow, didn't you? Oh yes, that awkward witness, Gina Lestrade. The saber face. Oh, Ginny? Yeah, she's a professional pickpocket. So we found out. It was very naughty of her to pinch my invention like that. Are you referring to that trial-disrupting gun-like contraption? Exactly. So I followed her, you see, to get it back. Perhaps I should think about fitting a self-destruct mechanism in my inventions. That seems like a bad idea. This girl is dangerous. Anyway, I brought Ginny back here after that, so she could apologize to my trusty technician. Sorry, your technician? Hurley, of course, silly. Hurley? Yes, Herlock. Herlock Sholmes. We live in here together. I had no idea the great detective had such an interesting young daughter. Daughter? Not likely. What? I wouldn't call him Hurley if he was my father, would I? Well then, what is your relationship with Mr. Sholmes? Well, I suspect you found out that lodgings of any kind in London are very expensive. So the solution is to share the cost with a partner, a roommate. Your roommates? Yeah, the housing market is in shambles. Everywhere. I hope you don't mind me asking, Iris, but how old are you? 10 at last this year. Well, what of your mother and father? Oh no, they're not around. Oh, I see. I wonder what the story is there. I don't know, have we... Ryunosuke, dude, we've met a guy named Wilson. Come on. Sholmes couldn't have a daughter because there's no way in hell that man is heterosexual. Completely correct. Oh yes, there's something I must ask you. Of course, go ahead, Susie. I'm a very great fan of the adventures of Herlock Sholmes, and oh, you have a copy of Rant's magazine. Yes, I read every issue. It's delivered all the way to Japan on a ship. Oh, this is so exciting. My stories are being read on the other side of the world. My stories? That's right. Hurley is always solving such amazing cases, you see, and he tells me all about them. They really are quite fascinating. It would be such a shame if I was the only one who ever heard them, don't you think? Goodness. Last night, he was telling me all about a new case he just solved on a steamship traveling from a faraway land. So I was just in the middle of typing up the manuscript for the next issue before you came. So she's like original Watson. She writes the stories. So you are the author? Yes, I'll let you in on a secret if you like. I'm going to call this later adventure The Speckled Band. The Speckled Band? That's certainly very familiar. Of course, I always change one or two details in the stories here and there. This time, I had the idea of making a venomous snake be the cause of all the trouble. Oh, that was Mr. Sholmes' first thought as well, actually. Yes, and of course I know that a snake might not be a credible fit for the facts of the case exactly, but it's a story. Some poetic license is justified to make it more thrilling, I think, don't you? Wow. So if we're to be believed, she just writes Ryunosuke out of all the stories. So, do you mean to say, are these stories about Mr. Sholmes that are published in Rance magazine? All written by me? Yes! Oh, my wonderful and very modern typewriter. But all the stories I've ever read are written by a doctor of medicine, Dr. John H. Wilson. Suzato-san's getting more and more worked up. Yes, that's me. I mean, my name really is Wilson. But what about the doctor of medicine part? That's all true, too. I am a doctor of medicine. No, at 10 years old? At 10 years old? Ace Attorney just loves its tiny little geniuses. Well, that's quite incredible. But, Dr. Wilson is an English gentleman. Yes. I did alter the setting slightly for the stories to be more compelling. Oh. Well, it sounds a little strange, doesn't it? A great detective with a 10-year-old girl in tow? I suppose it does, yes. Poor Suzato-san. She looks like her whole world has just fallen apart. About before. Yes? What's on your mind, Runo? Do tell me. How did you know? That I was a lawyer, and we just arrived in London, I mean. Yes. Oh, and that we have a difficult trial tomorrow. How did you know all of that? Oh, that's what you mean. Please, tell us how you did it. Explain every detail. Of course, I'd be delighted, although there's really no mystery. Now, let's begin. Oh, is she gonna do the deduction thing? Iris Wilson is proud to present her logic and reasoning spectacular. Oh, now we're the ones being owned with facts and logic. First of all, I knew you already were a lawyer, Runo. After all, I met you yesterday at the Old Bailey in the defendant's antechamber. But you also said that we'd only just arrived in London. How did you know that? I observed a passport and travel ticket protruding from your breast pocket. Oh, so I was reasonably confident that you must have only just arrived in the country. And on top of that, you accepted a case against that particular prosecutor, telling me you were unaware of London's court affairs. The Reaper of the Bailey? I walked right into that one, didn't I? Then I noticed a red ink stamp on the back of Susie's hand. You were given that when you visited a local prison to meet with a suspect, weren't you? Earlier today. Ah! They use those stamps to keep a close eye on comings and goings, you see. I didn't realize. And a red stamp is only used for people visiting foreign inmates. So, that told me that even though you had only yesterday concluded the trial of Magnus McGilden, the two of you had already had cause to visit a foreign inmate at a local prison. However, neither of you were wearing a particularly sad expression on your face. So I concluded that the prisoner was unlikely to be a friend or a relative. That led me to believe that you must have accepted a new case. I see. But how could you have known that the trial is tomorrow? Well, having barely been home a few hours yesterday, Hurley solved yet another case. It's obviously amused him. He told me that he caught a Japanese man who was bawling and trembling. A Japanese man? Well, clearly that must have been Mr. Natsume. Now, Runo has that fancy Japanese sword. And I think your outfit is called a kimono, isn't it, Susie? Well, anyway, it was clear to me that you both come from Japan yourselves. So I put two and two together and decided you must be defending the Japanese man Curly caught. There's only one conclusion those facts could lead me to. You both came here to ask Hurley about the case. Wow, she's actually good at it, unlike Sholmes. There's a note on the mantelpiece that says the man's trial will be tomorrow. Hurley is always stabbing his notes with a knife, you know. He is silly. And that's all there was to it, really. She does have a giant head, both physically and mentally. Thank you for listening. I'm Iris Wilson, and that was one of my great deductions. Well, was it a winner? Were my deductions correct? They were spot on. That was amazing, Iris. Truly a great deduction. You had managed to certain something of Mr. Sholmes' delivery. Oh, well, I was just copying Hurley's style for that. This is really very good news. You could tell us all about the case involving the Japanese man. You will, won't you, Iris? Please? The case of the Japanese man. So yesterday, Mr. Sholmes apprehended a Japanese man, you were saying? Yes. Hurley had just arrived back in London after his sea voyage, but the police were waiting for him at the railway station to take him directly to the crime scene. Ah, the great detective is a popular man, it seems. Apparently, a woman was stabbed on a quiet street somewhere in town, but she didn't die. There were witnesses who had been a short, shifty-looking, stooped man running away from the scene. A short, shifty-looking, stooped man. Mr. Natsume, beyond any doubt. Soseki-san said that he didn't see anybody else on the street at all. But it seems there were witnesses after all. Hurley used his great deductive powers to determine the man's address. It was a lodging room very nearby. He went directly there with the police, and what did they find? A short, shifty-looking, stooped man, shivering in fear. Mr. Sholmes' great deduction certainly hit the mark that time. Of course it did. He's a great detective. Still, that means the incident occurred only 2 days ago. Surely tomorrow is too soon for the trial, isn't it? Definitely. We have no time to investigate properly. Hurley says that London is rife with crime. Oh, Scotland Yard is doing its best, but they can't stay on top of it, apparently. Oh dear, I hadn't realized the situation was so dire. That's why they can't afford to spend too much time investigating cases and trying the criminals in court. Staff and money are both short. Crimes are usually pinned on the first suspicious person. Now this, I can buy. As opposed to, in the modern day, I can buy this in 1900s England. That's terrible. I suppose it's the harsh reality of the workings of the world's greatest justice system. I suppose it is, but in that case, I don't hold out much hope for Soseki-san. Thank you for answering so many of our questions, Iris. This has been very informative. Oh, you're most welcome. I've had so much fun. Do you happen to know where Mr. Sholmes is at the moment? As you guessed, we'd like to ask him some questions about this case as well. Well, I expect Hurley is still investigating the scene. Of the case involving Mr. Natsume, you mean? Yes, Mr. Natsume? Hurley said he was going to the man's lodgings. If you leave now, you'll probably catch him there. Iris, do you know where those lodgings are? Well, I imagine the police are still investigating the scene of the crime themselves, aren't they? Did you happen to come across a detective by the name of Gregson while you were there? Yes, we know Inspector Gregson. Goody, in that case. Give Gregsy this from me, would you? If you do that, I'm sure he'll tell you what you want to know. What is this? A 5-shilling piece and a postcard, it seems. We're gonna bribe him. reads, "Tell the gentleman in black whatever he wants to know. I trust that won't be a problem." Gosh, this will make the inspector help us, will it? Well, thank you, Iris. We'll give it a try. Bribery always works with cops. Good luck, then. I'm going to return to writing my manuscript, The Speckled Band. And I'll be making more special blends of tea, so come back again soon. We'd be delighted. Thank you so much, Iris. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, it's back to the scene of the crime. We got a schmoove. So, somewhat dubious that they would exert my influence over the men of Scotland Yard at all, we have headed back to the scene with Iris's curious note and on one of the world's heaviest silver coins in hand. To be continued. To be continued now. We're continuing for at least a little while longer. 19th of February, 2:38 p.m., Briar Road. It looks as though the police are still here, carrying on with their investigation. Perfect, so let's find Inspector Gregson as quickly as possible. Yes, and let's see if he'll take a break from his chips to look at that silver tip Iris gave us for him. Hey, you like money, right? Check this out. Inspector Gregson, do you have a moment? I'm sorry to say that I don't. I'm a very busy man. Much too busy to talk to a pair of foreign gadabouts, that's for sure. We have these for you. A present from Miss Iris Wilson. What? For me? From her ladyship? Uh-oh. I don't like this. Her ladyship? Give them here. At once. Hand over. Come on, hand it over. That's for me. Ah. Don't wait for me to give it to you, will you? What was that coin exactly? It's a silver crown, obviously, but it's a lot more than that. It's an appearance fee, that's what it is. An appearance fee? Oh, I see. You mean... That's right, for the adventures of Herlock Sholmes. Her ladyship always offers me a little financial reward for featuring me every time. Oh, he gets royalties. Yes, of course. I know all about your exploits, Inspector. I read them avidly. Of course, her using my name without my say-so does make me the butt of a lot of unpleasant jokes, but still. I am sorry, Inspector. That must be difficult for you. Never you mind that. So, what do you want to know then, eh? Sorry? Tell me the gentleman in black whatever he wants to know. I trust that won't be a problem, it says. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. The animation has, like, after he bites them, he, like, squeezes the tube a bit, and it just pushes up more. Well, obviously it's not a problem. Go on, fire away. What do you want to know? Well, if you wouldn't mind, Inspector, we'd very much like to know the address of Mr. Natsume's lodgings. Ah, the little knife-wielding, mouse-stache Japanese fellow. He lives in a right old hovel. It's just over there. Look. Oh. He lives next door. On the first floor of that house on the corner where that wreck of a bicycle's propped up. That is nearby indeed. If I remember rightly, the landlord is a Mr. John Garrydeb. Right, well, if you see her again, you make sure you give her ladyship my regards, you hear? I mean it, you tell her that Gregson sends his very best wishes. Then don't worry, Inspector, we will. Goodbye for now, then. And long live her ladyship. What? Is she secretly the fucking Queen of England, too? Well, at least he told us what we wanted to know before he left. Yes, so then, shall we go and see what we can find in Mr. Natsume's lodgings? Definitely. Got a schmoove. "19th of February, Mr. Natsume's lodgings. This is interesting. May I help you? Yes. Would this be the residence of Mr. John Garrydeb? Indeed it would, sir. And who, may I say, is calling? My name is Ryonosuke Naruhodo. Mr. Naruhodo is representing Mr. Soseki Natsume. I believe he takes lodgings here? We would very much like to ask him some questions about our client. Okay. One moment, please. I shall convey the message to Mr. Garrydeb. Did you see that, Mrs. Susato? That was a real-life English maid. Well, I mean, we saw one in the jury yesterday. I know. As I understand it, anyone of your standing in English society employs a number of household staff. That was the first time I've ever seen one in the flesh. Oh, this day keeps getting better. It certainly feels like we've really arrived now, doesn't it? We need only to meet a butler and the experience will be complete. Well, I'm not sure if I'd go that far, but I understand the sentiment. Now, Mr. Naruhodo, you have to put on this maid dress. Wait, what? Thank you for waiting. Mr. Garrydeb will see you now. This way. Look at this dude's head. Look at his head. I notice you have a pile of books here, Mr. Garrydeb. Do you enjoy reading? Ever experienced a London winter, boy? The nights are long. No better way to pass the time. Why is he stirring his tea with his pipe? That's very unsanitary. No better way to pass the time than in front of the fire with a jolly good book. Oh, there's a copy of Rand's magazine here, I see. Back tonight, look at it. Yeah, it's the Moon Man. No doubt Mr. Garrydeb enjoys the adventures of Sherlock Sholmes, too. The great detective has a great many followers, it would seem. Tell me about your... That's a full-size cannon. What's it doing in here? Oh my, it's real. I thought it might be a replica. That old thing? Bah, that's little more than a toy. Sorry? The army was selling it off when I retired, so I decided to give it a new home. You select him every time I play Melty. He's got that crescent moon style. Never know when the enemy might attack next. Jolly useful to have a cannon about the house. Really? It isn't overkill? Be prepared, I always say. You never know what this twisted world is going to throw at you next, boy. Do you think there may be trouble brewing, Mr. Garrydeb? Always is. Take Joan here. Never fails to have a clean apron in reserve. Dries them over the barrel, you see. They dry very well in the cannon there, Joan tells me, which rather proves my point, I feel. It's been reduced to a drying rack. No wonder the huge cannon looks like it's hanging its head in shame. That uniform looks fairly ancient, doesn't it? It's clearly been well looked after, though. That old thing? Pah, not much better than rags, really. Oh? Wore that ceremonial garb at my retirement bash, you know. But I'm not one for dwelling on the past, me. Would have gladly thrown it out, but you know how it is. Anyway, it doesn't hurt to have the odd piece of memorabilia lying around, does it? Oh, I see. Perhaps we should leave the past in the past. For a guy who's like, oh, forget the past, he's got a lot of stuff from the past around here. Are those mortar shells? They're enormous. Ah, I hadn't noticed. What are they doing here? I wonder what war he fought on, like maybe the Napoleonic ones? Ah, those old things? A couple of little rounds I accidentally fired into the barracks during training, you know? Became a bit of a colorful regiment folklore, that incident. You mean you deliberately hunted out the spent shells? Well, I wouldn't say deliberately, exactly. They're only scrap iron after all, usually just thrown away, I believe. But you never know when things might come in useful, do you? Useful for what, exactly? Yes, well... Joan here did manage to knock one of the bowly things on my foot the other day while she was dusting. Oh no! Hadn't had a tear since 1869 before then, you know. maybe reconsider throwing them away? There's a lot going on here. That looks like a Medal of Honor, and it's showcased on a very grand banner. Yes, it's displayed with some pride, I would say, although it bothers me that it's not straight. What, that little thing? Sorry? I should be glad to see the back of it, but the General would turn in his graves if I disposed of it. The wall's the best place for it, keeps the bally thing out of my way. So it's just been polished to shine by accident, I suppose? There appears to be an inscription on the medal itself. Look, let me see. It says, "For distinguished participation." Sounds like the kind of honors even I could be in line for. It's a participation trophy. Well, one doesn't like to blow one's own trumpet, but I was given that for my time in the army. Can't measure an officer by the number of medals to his name, of course. Common knowledge in military circles. Very impressive. That portrait of Mr. Garadeb is glaring at me, I swear. Have you noticed that all the little frames contain photographic prints of Mr. Garadeb as well? Yes, and there seems to be a statue of a lion on the mantelpiece as well. Let me guess, what, that old thing? Ah yes, seemed to come back from the local pawnbroker with that little trinket. Seemed to come back? What do you mean? That chap who runs the place is a bally wizard. Went in to sell him something and came out with that thing. In point of fact, now I think about it, I rather often find myself leaving the place with something I don't need. The lion ornament certainly does seem surplus to requirements. Susanna-san doesn't pull her punches, or her throws for that matter. Look at that enormous screen. It must have been put there deliberately, surely. Yes, it certainly seems like someone's been trying to hide something from view. What could be behind it, I wonder? I'm going to have a very quick look. Just a little peek. Ahem, ahem. Maybe let's not, Miss Susato. I think the maid is going to head us off with a cup of tea. Ahem, ahem. Wait, what's that on the floor? Oh, we can't examine it, okay. Wait, that's just... Is that like a hole, or is it a spill? It looks like a spill. Oh, look! What a wonderful collection of cakes lined up on that gleaming silver cake stand. Lined up? It looks more like someone has half demolished them to me. Afternoon tea is a time of indulgence, you know. It is quite the English way. It is Mr. Garadeb's custom to take 2 cakes with his tea. That sounds delightful. Oh, wait a minute, though. There are at least 10 cakes on this cake stand. Well, naturally, and it would never do to waste the leftovers. So whatever Mr. Garadeb doesn't eat, I say to myself, Joan, you shall have to tidy up. How magnanimous of you. So many things to examine in this room. This old candle holder looks a little out of place here, wouldn't you say? It's asking me to be its guest. Yes, you're right. It's clearly supposed to be gold, but it's almost completely black for some reason. Ah, that old thing, yes. Just a cheap piece of ironmongery. Gimcrack, really. Oh, used it when I was studying, don't you know, for my commission. I know it's old, hardly worth hanging on to, really, but, well, still has its uses sometimes. Of course. Does everything in this room have some elaborate story behind it? They're memories, Mr. Naruhodo, memories. He's pretty old. Oh my god, what is all this stuff? Look at this crockery on display here. It's rather unusual, isn't it? Oh my, a genuine London dresser. Isn't it delightful? Although the shelves seem to be broken, and the crockery is... Oh dear, it's in pieces. It really is. The word cracked wouldn't do that Chinaware justice. It does do Sherlock justice, though. Sorry, Herlock. Ah, I wonder. Perhaps the cannon was fired at it. Yeah, probably something like that. But let's not delve too deeply here. This window looks out over Briar Road, where the young woman was attacked. Oh yes, I can make out the policeman on the far side of the road investigating the crime scene. The glass is rather murky, isn't it? You can't see very clearly. Does this thing open at all, I wonder? I shouldn't underestimate the bitterness of a London winter, sir. Sorry? As soon as you open that window, the tea will freeze in the pot. No Londoner would go opening windows at dusk in the middle of winter, I assure you. Seems very unlikely that these two would have seen anything of the incident then. I guess that's everything. Let's talk to them. Good day to you. John Garadeb at your service. Pleased to meet you, sir. This is Ryanosuke Naruhodo. He's a defense lawyer. Do excuse me not getting up. Took a shot to the knee a few years back in the Battle of Maiwan, don't you know? I don't know if that's a battle or not. A real thing. Earned a medal for my pains, but had to withdraw from service. Handed over the reins to the up-and-comings. So he's a retired soldier. It's a hell of a job getting up and downstairs now, I can tell you. Don't get out much, as you can imagine. Yes, it's quite a climb up there on the second floor, isn't it? I was panting at the top of the stairs. You really must take more exercise, Mr. Naruhodo. Do you think so? Well, Mr. Garadeb, no doubt you were very courageous to earn yourself a medal. Oh, it was nothing. The medal's just a folderol, really. Wouldn't like to offend the general, though, so I grudgingly displayed it on the wall. Why don't you fetch it down, Joan? Let these good people see it properly. Joan, fetch the— Ah! Dash it all, woman, be careful! Oh, dear me, I do beg your pardon, sir. Huh, you jolly nearly took the skin off my hands. I shall be more careful, sir. I don't think that was an accident. So anyway, there you have it. Living the quiet life now. Yes, I see. Now then, I hear you want to know what about the chap glidging down the stairs, is that right? Yes, we would be very grateful if you could answer some questions for us. Only too pleased, naturally. Especially if it helps to keep the peace here in Blighty. We've forged an alliance with the Empire of Japan recently, as I'm sure you're aware. So this case is very much in the public eye, as it were. Oh, is it? Even had some famous detective poking around, you know, in this old house, would you believe? Yes, Mr. Herlock Sholmes. Huh, could have been. Didn't catch the chap's name. Not really my cup of tea, all that detective business. Oh, but you have a copy of Rant's magazine here, so... Ah, no, Anyway, the chap's investigating the foreigner's room as we speak. So he's in Soseki-san's room. Why does he seem so nervous about the magazine? It's a bally nuisance is what it is. The whole neighborhood's twitching its curtains now. I don't like all this fuss. It's jolly unsettling. Let's ask about Natsume. About Mr. Natsume then, Mr. Garadeb, please, do tell us. Ah yes, the Japanese chap. Only been lodging here for a week. Oh, just 1 week? So he moved in very recently then. I have 2 lodgers most of the time, one on the high ground floor and one just below us. The first floor room became available a week ago, you see. That'd been— Ah! Dash it all, Joan, do be careful. Oh, my goodness, I'm terribly sorry, sir. If you want to know my opinion, I thought he was a shady sort from the moment I set eyes on him. Oh, why? He seemed to have a most nervous disposition, always shaking and looking over his shoulder. The man had shady written across his sweat-soaked brow, if you ask me. I said to myself, Joan, that man is trouble. Sooner or later, he's going to do something untoward. And I'm rarely wrong about anything. We won't be calling this maid as a witness, that's for sure. Watch, she ends up on the jury. Was there anything else that struck you as suspicious about the man at all? Yes, oh yes, indeed there was. And she's dying to tell us. Had you noticed anything else at all about your lodger, Mr. Natsume? Or, I should have inflected that differently. Mr. Natsume? Oh my word, yes. The man was shadier than an orchard. Could you elaborate? Well, take to the man's room. Absolutely stuffed full of books it is, more than anyone could ever read. And he never so much as passes the time of day with another living soul. I haven't seen a single visitor call. He just trots off to that old bookshelf every single day and comes back at 5 to light the gas fire. And the funny little man is up long past time. Everyone else in the house has gone to bed, too. Oh, I see. The gentleman on the ground floor goes to bed at around 9 each night, but I've never known that Japanese fellow to retire any earlier than 2 in the morning. Could you clarify something, I wonder? What, pray? How do you know so much about Mr. Nutsumi's routine? Oh! I'd understood that neither of the lodgers live on this floor of the house. Is that correct? That's right, yes. They're both below us, on the first floor and street level. Then, how is it that you know so much about the lives of your lodgers? The precise times that they come back in the evening, for example, even the times they go to bed. Yeah, that's a little weird. Ah! Good grief, Joan. Be more careful, woman. Oh my goodness, sir. I'm terribly sorry, sir. Something doesn't add up here. They're avoiding the questions. It seems that the incident took place at around 5 in the evening. Did you happen to look out of the window at around that time? The window? Yes, we noticed that the window over there looks out of the Briar Road. The incident took place on the pavement just on the far side of the street. Was there anyone suspicious loitering nearby? 5 o'clock is dinner time in the Garadeb household, so I'm afraid I don't remember seeing anything. How about you, Joan? No, sir. It would have been dusk outside already at that hour. And with the fog as well, I should think it would have been quite impossible to see the other side of the road. Oh, I see. Did you notice anything else out of the ordinary, then? Such as... anything at all, even if it seems unrelated. Well... yes, was there something, then? Well, it's not nothing particularly significant, but around that sort of time, and here there... For the love of God, Joan, watch what you're doing! Oh, dear me, what have I done? I'm awfully sorry, sir. Do be more careful, woman. They're avoiding questions. They're definitely avoiding the questions. If I may, Mr. Narrow Hollow. Oh, yes? Come on, you could at least correct her. I have an exceedingly good memory, and as far as I remember, nothing of any significance took place here at that hour. Nothing at all. Oh, really? Mr. Garadeb? The way you were talking before, it sounded rather like there might have been. Oh, well, as I was saying, it was just a trifling matter, really. Nothing of... Ah! Joan, dash it all! What is the matter with you, woman? Begging your pardon, sir. Nothing happened. She seems insistent. Yes, quite. Nothing happened. We sat down to a quiet, uneventful meal. Joan? That's right, Mr. Garadeb. What is the matter with these two? It sounds like something happened here in this room on the evening of the incident, but what? Please don't call it CBT, come on. It's the cock and ball team. Alright, at least let me look at the guy's room. Could you tell us which floor Mr. Natsume's room is on? Why, certainly. Just below us on the first floor. And Mr. Sholmes is investigating there even as we speak? Yes, told me Nat's his name. I had asked him to look into the matter, so I gave him the key. Mr. Natsume has engaged Mr. Sholmes' services? That's a blatant lie. Would it be alright if we also had a look around? In Mr. Natsume's room, I mean. Don't see why not. It's just down one flight of stairs. Who knows if we'll find anything that could help us with the case, but we have to try. We need all the clues we can lay our hands on, shall we? Yes, and while we're there, we can speak with Mr. Sholmes again. Perhaps he'll be able to tell us more. Don't mention Mr. Cumberbund in my chat room, Pro Tycoon. This Sholmes is much more fun. Alright, let's go check out the other room, I suppose. What? He's got a cat. And another cat. 19th of February, Mr. Natsume's room. What? Just look at this place. And smell it. It's so musty in here. I suppose it's the mountains of old books that are responsible for that. I don't think I've ever seen so many books in all my life. No, me neither. It's so dark in here, too. Is that the window over there? Well, it was the window, I think. Yes, once upon a time. But for some reason, it's been closed up with bricks and mortar. So this is where Mr. Natsume lives. By the way, I haven't spotted Mr. Sholmes anywhere, have you? He's gonna, like, pop out of a pile of books or something. Something insane. No, that's true, but according to what Mr. Garadev told us, the great detective should be around here somewhere investigating. So we gotta take a look. Funny cat. Oh, look, it's a beckoning cat from home. It's a bit big and bulky, isn't it? Surely Mr. Natsume didn't bring that Meneki Moneko all the way from Japan with him. I hardly think you're in a position to comment, Mr. Naruhodo. Are you forgetting the enormous Daruma doll that you brought in your luggage? Well, it can be dangerous traveling abroad. I wanted a lucky charm. Well, I imagine Mr. Natsume wanted the same, and this cat is sure to beckon good luck to him. It's not doing a very good job so far, is it? You mustn't say such things. I didn't say a word. Why are my eyes such a giveaway? In this bag? Look at all these balls of paper on the floor. There are notes scrawled all over them, in English. It looks like the waste paper basket is so full they've just fallen out. I think Mr. Natsume must have been deeply immersed in his research, don't you? Or deeply averse to tidying up his mess. I wouldn't like to speculate which is closer to the truth. Look at all these books stacked up there. They almost reach the ceiling. They're all works of English literature. They all smell so musty. With this volume of books to hand, you'd never be short of reading material, would you? No, what a dreamy idea. A bad dream, maybe, for me at least. Mind you, I don't mind imagine the books that's at the bottom of the pile now will ever be read again. Ah, so reading it is an experience that comes but once in a lifetime. This is the tea ceremony teaches us. I certainly didn't expect the conversation to turn down the path of tea ceremony philosophy. Let's see. What is it? Can I not examine that? Okay. Could you even call this a window? I think so. It was a window at one time, after all. Although, all that remains is a frame around some bricks now. So really, it's just the wall then, isn't it? But why would anyone deliberately break it up like that? I'm afraid I have no idea. Ah! Perhaps Mr. Natsume painted the brick design on in a fit of whimsy. That's alarmingly feasible. Yeah, he's gonna try and make the Roadrunner run into it or something. Anyway, whatever the reason, the lack of ventilation in here makes the place very oppressive. It does. I imagine being cooped up in a room like this would be extremely trying. What's he got there? What's this? That desk seems to be wedged into a crevice between the mountains of books on either side. I suppose Mr. Natsume would sit there and read while stroking his cat. But surrounded on all sides by these towering old tomes, surely he dreamt of books every night as well. Yes, he must have done, mustn't he? Oh, what's this? It's a receipt from a second-hand bookshop. Your books. Oh yes, Mr. Natsume's name is on it, look. And the date of purchase, 2 days ago at 4:45 p.m. That's the day of the incident. That's definitely important evidence. That's just a short while before he was embroiled in the terrible attack. He must have been on his way back from buying some old books. A receipt discovered in Mr. Natsume's room from some books that he had purchased from a second-hand bookshop before the incident occurred. Tell me about the cat. I want to look at the cat. Aww! Look at its big eyes. The cat has left. Oh my, what an adorable little cat. Perhaps he's looking after all the books while his master is away. I don't know about that. He disappeared in that pile of books as quick as a flash. It was a tricolor Mike, wasn't it? Do they even have that sort of cat here in Great Britain? Perhaps Mr. Natsume brought the little creature with him from Japan. That's made me feel homesick now. Already? We've only been in the country for 2 days. No more cat. He's gone. Oh, there he is. Of course. Hello, Sholmes. Ah, look, Mr. Naruhodo. Aha, there he is. Where did he appear from? He seems to be engrossed in the pages of an old book. I hope you won't mind if we would disturb him. Hello, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, he teleported. Ah, you two, good day. Now, let me see. Where was it that we met? Oh, Mr. Sholmes, we were together on the SS Buria. Yes, of course, the Buria. And let me see. What happened on that voyage? It was Kazuma Asogi. He died, tragically. But you were a great help to us. Ah, yes, but of course. The case of Mr. Asogi. It was the one with the snake, wasn't it? Oh, well, you seem to remember. Something of it, at least. What an honor to be remembered vaguely by the great Herlock Sholmes. This is Mr. Oh, no, my dear madam. Hold your tongue. I pride myself on my superior powers of recollection. Your names are safely recorded in my brain attic. I like that a lot more than Mind Palace. I like that a lot more than Mind Palace, the brain attic. That's really good. The brain attic. I'm gonna start using that. Miss Naruhodo. And Mr. Susato. Try it the other way around, Mr. Sholmes. I lose the first round. In truth, I had hoped to invite you both to my Baker Street suite the day we arrived in London. But some Scotland Yarders ambushed me at the railway station and whisked me away to a crime scene. It was an entirely trivial case, of course. I solved the matter in no more than 30 minutes. So they apprehended Soseki-san in that short an amount of time? I'm afraid the pursuance of a new case has dulled my recollection of my past involvements a little. A little? It is a mistake to think that one's brain attic has elastic walls and can distend to any extent. I do my best to forget useless facts, lest they should elbow out the useful ones. That is actually more sort of a Sherlock quote. He's always talking about not memorizing stuff he doesn't need. Yes, those are my own words of inimitable wisdom, you know? From an adventure entitled A Study in Scarlet. Yeah, that's the first one. Please, there's no need to quote yourself. I don't always remember my pearls of wisdom, but fortunately my associate pens them beautifully. He means Iris, I suppose. Mr. Sholmes, we have some extremely important questions to ask you about the trivial case you just mentioned. Goodness, what an earnest expression. My dear madam, I should be only too pleased, and this murky room is an apt place to discuss the murky case. Hey, check this out. Mr. Naruhodo, please. Despite aspersions to the contrary, I am a professional. If I am to unleash my deductive powers on that trinket, I must ask for a sum of £3 in cash. Oh, I don't need you to make any deductions about it. I was just wondering if you might know... Mr. Naruhodo, as a professional, I insist that if I am to offer my opinion on that trinket, I must ask for a sum of £3 in cash. Fuck you, pay me. I believe Mr. Sholmes has his eye on an expensive copy of the complete works of Shakespeare. Yes, to stand on the stage amid rapturous applause. It has long been a dream of mine, you know. I literally had no idea. That's why you always gotta show the badge. We know this has to be the lodgings of a Japanese foreign student by the name of Soseki Natsume. It seems that you assisted in his arrest, Mr. Sholmes, for the stabbing of a young woman outside here on Briar Road. Natsume. Yes, I believe it was a name rather along those lines. But Mr. Natsume denies it. Was it really justifiable to arrest him on so little? Yes! I'm sorry, Miss Susato, but I have not the slightest idea what you mean. What? I can't believe he was looking Susato-san squarely in the eye while feigning ignorance. I assure you, I am not merely feigning ignorance. It would appear as if the pair of you are under some misapprehension. Oh, how? Yeah, the big brain addict. I assure you I have no recollection of accusing your stooped compatriot of the crime. But that doesn't make sense. The good detective of Scotland Yard made the following request to me, and I quote verbatim. We need you to ascertain the identity and whereabouts of a man seen fleeing the crime scene. Ah, a man seen fleeing. There were a number of books scattered on the pavement at the scene. From the book plates, I was quickly able to determine the bookshop from which they had been purchased. On speaking with the proprietor, I was immediately led to this address. Elementary, wouldn't you say? I believe there is a receipt around here somewhere from the establishment in question. So you don't think Mr. Matsume is the culprit, then? That I could not tell you. But it was aggravating my faculties, hence why I returned here. However, this place is such a trove of fascinating books, I found myself quite lost in bibliophilia. Do not be deceived in believing that I am a man of leisure. No, no, no. Oh dear. Tell me about that weird landlord who is obviously dodging thy questions. Tell me. Have you encountered the landlord of these lodgings? Yes, Mr. Garadeb, a retired military man. It was the first time I've ever met a soldier from the great British institution that is the services. Well, I don't know if great is the word to describe it, but sure. And it was the first time I've ever met a maid from the great British institution that is service. Lowercase. Ah ha 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 ha. I didn't think it was that funny. I do apologize. As you may well be aware, many households in London employ a maid. Yes, I read as much in my Great Britain primer. And so, conversely, whether or not a household implies a maid has come to be betoken of the social standing of those dwelling wherein. Betoken their social standing? Sorry? Put simply, my dear fellow, those who employ at least a single maid are considered middle class. Those who do not are beneath that. In the upper echelons of society, of course, households simply employ enough staff to constitute a large family. Goodness, how extraordinary. As you can appreciate, for those on the precarious boundary between the middle and lower classes, being able to afford just one maid is of the first importance. Good old British classism. I had no idea, and it is for precisely that reason that I find great stimulation in the situation upstairs. Specifically in that retired army veteran, Mr. John Garadeb. Oh? Affable as he is, the fellow is hiding something. Whether or not it imposes on the circumstances of this case, I am as yet unable to ascertain. I'm thoroughly lost on what he means to say. No, he's definitely hiding something. Sholmes is right. This room is thoroughly suffocating for the soul, my dear fellow. I assure you, any man whose lot is to dwell in a place such as this will stab somebody sooner or later. Mr. Natsume has stabbed no one. Ah, but sooner or later, as I said. I don't believe that's the issue here. About this dark little room, Mr. Sholmes. Why is there no longer a window? Do you have any idea? No window? Well, I mean, I can clearly see that there is a window of sorts. But it's been completely blocked with bricks. Ah, I see. The answer to that question is quite simple. Window tax. Window tax? What is that? I've never heard of this. Surely not a tax on windows. Precisely that. Oh my goodness. Until relatively recently, a tax was levied on households in this country by the number of their windows. Those of lesser means, having inherited a sizable and costly family home perhaps, rapidly closed windows up. I've never heard of this. This is weird and interesting. While the rich open their windows here, there, and everywhere. In an effort to curry favor with those in power by furnishing them with large sums of tax money. Rich actually paying taxes. Now that's a funny joke. How awful and unjust. Forcing people to live in rooms devoid of light. Indeed, disease was rife as a result. So some 40 years ago, or thereabouts, the window tax was abolished. But its legacy remains, as you can see, in squalid lodgings disease, for example. I suppose Mr. Natsume's stipend for living here in London isn't very generous, perhaps. It would appear so. I've done a little digging, and discovered that these lodgings were offered at an extraordinarily low price. Well, I definitely wouldn't pay even medium price for this. Because the room is so awful, I should think. Apparently, Mr. Natsume only moved in here about 1 week ago. Yes, that's correct. However, I don't believe the low rent is explained by the shabby nature of the accommodation. Oh? Still, that is of little relevance here, a matter not worthy of further attention. Are you sure? I'm curious now. Well, I believe I've told you all I can now. Thank you, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, yes, Mr. Naruhodo. Was it not your intention to become a practitioner of law? You remembered that, did you? Would you perhaps be offering your services in this very matter, I wonder? To the occupant of this room, Mr. Natsume, was it? I'm not sure. Not sure? On what grounds? Well, I actually defended someone in court here only yesterday. Really? Well, then I congratulate you, sir, on an ambition realized, and so promptly, too. The thing is, it's really made me question things. Am I right to believe in my clients? To trust in their innocence? Yes, trust. Mr. Sholmes, Mr. Natsume didn't do it, did he? My dear fellow, I haven't the first idea. Oh, but I thought that's what you were here. Didn't you come back to investigate? Ah, yes, that was indeed my initial intention. But there are simply too many fascinating books here. I couldn't possibly ignore them. Oh, I see. Nevertheless, there are 2 facts that I can state quite unequivocally. The man who fled the scene of the crime 2 days ago was the Japanese occupant of this room, and there are witnesses who swear to having seen the same man commit the crime. That is all I can say. Ah, and one more thing. Oh, what is it, Mr. Sholmes? Tell us. I cannot say with any certainty whether or not it is of relevance to this case, but I am quite sure that the retired army man who owns this property is hiding something. Yeah, he's just one more thing. I saw you do it. I'm going to have to send you to the Sholmes dimension now. Mr. Garadeb is... Mr. Sholmes said as much before, actually, didn't he? Anyway, at present, that is really all that plays on my mind in relation to this case. Mr. Naruhodo, as yet our investigations have uncovered nothing that could help establish Mr. Natsume's innocence. No, you're right. Perhaps it's time we probed a little deeper into Mr. Garadeb's secret. Just remember, I cannot be sure whether the landlord's secret will prove to be of relevance or not. But I wish you every success, of course, Mr. Naruhodo. Bye. Huh, a busy man indeed. He's gone back to his book in the corner of the room. Sure has. Look at him. Look at this guy. What's more to say? Excuse me, Mr. Sholmes. Yes, so true. To be or not to be? That is indeed the question, Mr. Naruhodo. To be or not to be brushed off, that is the question. And the answer is all too clear. Let's leave Mr. Sholmes in peace, shall we? I've got some reading to catch up on. Don't tell anybody, I don't actually know how. Let's go talk to Mr. Garadev again. Ah, you Peregrine. Tell me, was the detective chap, I forget his name, still hard at work down there? Mr. Herlock Sholmes? Ah yes, rings a vague bell. That detective business isn't really my thing, I'm afraid. Well, Mr. Sholmes is in his element down there. Jolly good show. Another cup of tea, if you please, Joan. Now then, why don't you tell me what— Ah! For the umpteenth time, woman, will you watch what you're badly well doing? I shall be serving dinner shortly, sir. Yes, of course. Frightfully rude of me, but I'm afraid I shall have to ask you to take your leave, if you'd be so kind. Oh, yes, of course. We are deeply grateful for all your assistance. Not at all, not at all. Don't get much chance to talk with young foreigners like yourselves. It's been a pleasure. Best of luck and all that. Perhaps you could see yourselves out. Wait, hang on. I had a question. Don't brush us off again. Don't try to distract me with your funny tea trick, your comedy routine there. According to Mr. Sholmes, Mr. Garadev is hiding something. And since no other avenues of investigation seem open to us at the moment, perhaps we should do some digging. It's definitely this weird stain, probably, right? Herlock Sholmes versus Columbo. Now that's the most ambitious crossover in history. No, we've already read this one. Maybe I should present something to them? No, I can't present anything. Ah! Fuck! Every time it surprises me. Why would I even be surprised anymore? Jesus. What's he doing over there? Mr. Sholmes? Aha! We meet again, my dear fellows. Good gracious, when did you sneak in here? Herlock Sholmes, sir, at your service. Whatever were you doing over by the window? I'm given to watching the evening sky as the sun sets, madam. Yet sadly, cheerful as the room downstairs undoubtedly is, it lacks an aperture for such observation. So I took the liberty of borrowing a small corner of space by the window up there. Huh, well. Keeping an eye on to one's windows at dusk is the prudent thing to do in London, I'm gathering. Ah, and one other thing, Mr. Naruhodo, one more thing. He's doing it again. Oh, me? I thought perhaps you might be in need of a certain great detective's great mind. Wait, he's not talking about, is he? I didn't expect to be going through that again so soon. Do you mean Mr. Sholmes? There is a mighty secret in this modest room. My eyes see even the most trivial of trifles. I take it you're prepared, Mr. Naruhodo? I think so. There's just time enough for one of my greatly admired great deductions. Let us conclude the matter before dark. Mr. Garrideb, though it would seem you are a military man of considerable distinguished service, your standing as a landlord is most certainly not what might call first-rate. I'm afraid, sir, that it is all too clear to me. There are two conclusions I have been able to draw by careful observation of your living arrangements. I beg your pardon? The first is that even as we speak, you are concealing the presence of a ferocious beast in your care. Eh? And the second is that as a result of the beast's violent rampage, you have lost something very dear to you. Mr. Naruhodo, look! The old man's broken out in a cold sweat. Unbelievably, it seems Mr. Sholmes' conclusions are both spot on. How could you possibly? Good night, innocent bystander. Thanks for joining as always. I hope you solve all the mysteries in your life. How could I possibly know, you mean to inquire? The answer couldn't be simpler, sir. For in the dense jungle of logic and reasoning, I am the king of beasts. I'm going to own you now with facts and logic. And I know only too well that wild beasts are not easily tamed. So, shall we begin? Once again, Herlock Sholmes is proud to present his logic and reasoning spectacular. The Great Deduction. The game is afoot. Topic 1. Nature of the beast. It certainly shouldn't take a great detective to see that a fearsome beast has been on the rampage of late within these four walls. Yeah, I was wondering about all the broken stuff. Thus, we are faced with the question, what form might this beast take? For a man with a military breeding, your eyes are uncommonly candid. Aye. Your furtive glance, Mr. Garrideb, leads us directly to the answer. The true nature of the beast that has run rampant here is revealed by that lion statue. Yeah, he's got a lion in here, sure. Yes, though an army man, you appear unimposing at best. A fact that has fueled your admiration for the mighty lion, the king of beasts. What is this piffle, I ask you? In the end, your admiration became so great, in fact, that you had a living, breathing specimen shipped from India, which you tried to keep in this very house. What? Yet living with such a wild beast proved more difficult than you had imagined. The chilling traces of a wild rampage are still very much in evidence. Well, yet as we look around, the beast in question fails to present itself. Where could this angry creature have disappeared to? Madam? Me? I pray you do not consider me unchivalrous, but it is plain to me with one glance in your direction. It is? Your dress pocket gives us a handsome clue as to the beast's current whereabouts. For protruding from it is a handbill advertising a circus show. Yes, you sought to dispose of this terrifying lion, Mr. Garrideb, as Batty's Circus, a traveling show currently sojourning in a nearby park. I have observed the tents. You sold the savage lion, sir, to the circus troupe. I most certainly did not. I believe I have made my points. The fearsome beast which ran amok in this room was an Indian lion. And a simple visit to the circus now will reveal the lion prancing jubilantly through a ring of fire. Conclusion: a rampaging Asiatic lion. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Topic 2, Aftermath. Now, Mr. Garrideb, it is plainly clear that you still have deep feelings for this formidable beast. Indeed, in that blithe pose, the distress this loss has caused you is veritably tangible. Your head weighs heavy on your shoulders, the pain you feel, revealed by that supporting arm. Amid fits of tears, you let your beloved beast go. The strain of losing something so dear to you is clearly visible in your visage. Nonsense, man. I simply... But what, we must now ask ourselves, is the true cause of this pain? And we need only follow the direction of your gaze to find the answer. Yes, it is the pile of bills that gives rise to the pain you suffer. Every envelope contains another demand for payment. For whoa, my special eyes. For cartloads of meat, potatoes, wheat, and tea. Indeed, feeding your beloved has had a devastating impact on the financial circumstances of your household. And so you have no choice but to let it go. Yes, well, Now, in a final fit of rage, the ferocious beast carried out one last unimaginable attack. Unimaginable? The aftermath of which can completely be seen by observing the carpet over there. Oh, it's burned. A very expensive woolen carpet, if I am not mistaken. Oh, dearie me. What could have caused such a destructive outburst? This time, madam, I'm afraid it is you who has inadvertently revealed the truth to me. Your wandering eye has settled upon the answer very neatly indeed. Yes, to explain the dire state of the carpet, we need only look at the Tower of Cakes. There is no creature more dangerous on this earth than a beast with an unsatiated appetite. Was it, or was it not, once said by a certain noblewoman, if they have no bread, let them eat cake? Food is at the heart of all tragedy, in fact. Yeah, well, I mean, that lady was shortly beheaded, so... Whatever do you mean? Having tired of the taste of cake, the beast began to stalk its next prey. I'm sure I need not spell out the nature of this final act of destruction carried out by the beast. There's only one logical conclusion. Worked onto a frenzy by hunger, the lion attacked and ate the carpet. The teeth marks in the carpet are a perfect match with those of a lion I once saw in India. Yeah, sure. Carpet gnawed on by the starving lion. That doesn't seem quite right. Thus concludes Herlock Sholmes' great deduction of this beastly puzzle. I love the guy's face. What is the matter with you, Joan? You're pouring scalding hot tea all over me. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Garrideb. I'm afraid I didn't notice. My deductions can be startlingly sharp. It stands to reason that your cup runneth over. Indeed, my revelations can make people spill tears at times, too. Oh. Mr. Sholmes, sorry to butt in again, but could I make an observation? Why, certainly, Mr. Naruhodo. What is it again? Well, your deductions just now. Do you really think a lion could have fit inside a room of this size? Indeed, it is the only explanation for the facts. The terrifying truth all too often lies beyond the realms of common sense. But wouldn't it be an idea to consider what lies inside the realms of common sense as well? But if an uncaged lion had run amok in this very room, surely Mr. Garrideb and his maid would have been hurt, or worse. Ah, that's where you are stuck. No doubt the former military man held his own against the beast using that large cannon. I thought you said that he sold the lion to the circus. And what about the food? Meat and potatoes are one thing. But I don't believe I have ever heard of a lion that drinks tea. Ah, my dear Miss Susato, it occurs to me with some regularity that irrespective of race and breeding, whenever anyone lands on Great British soil, they are infused with a highly appropriate taste for afternoon tea. My tea and crumpets! Oh, what a glorious notion! Well then, Mr. Naruhodo, it's your turn to shine again. I had a feeling that was coming. A slight massage, that's all Mr. Sholmes' deductions need. You can do it. Yeah, that's another problem with England, is its aura that compels you to just chug hot tea. And I like some types of hot tea, but I'm mostly an iced tea type of person. Excellent. I've been waiting for my trusty partner in deduction to step forward, Mr. Naruhodo. We don't even know yet whether or not this is going to help with Mr. Natsume's case. Still, uncovering the truth is always worthwhile, whatever the motivation. At least, that's what I want to believe. Let us start again. From the beginning. Of Herlock Sholmes' logic and reasoning spectacular. Course correction. Hold it, Mr. Sholmes. Alright, let's try this again. Let's fix it. I can fix him. It certainly shouldn't take... Yeah, alright. I already read it all. I'm not doing it again. So the lion is definitely not a thing. Let's see where he's really looking. I really didn't see the lion thing coming. No, but if you observe Mr. Garadeb's reaction, it rather seems as though some beast did indeed run amok here in this room. Yes, something with a very fierce nature. But it couldn't have been a lion transported from India. So what was it then? We must follow Mr. Garadeb's gaze. That will lead us to the true answer. Let's take a look here. Aha!
Take that!
Oh, was I wrong? I guess I should have... I keep forgetting I gotta examine it first. Yeah, see, I have to examine it first. Though I have yet to examine it in detail, I can assure you that it holds the answer. Because I'm employing an extremely advanced detection technique called jumping to conclusions, you see? What precisely was your intention with that, Mr. Naruhodo? Just following the natural progression of the deduction, sometimes the truth hurts. Well, the truth is, you do not have a turn for observation or deduction. Did that hurt? Yes, a lot. Sorry, I gotta examine it. Well, what do we know with some certainty is that a destructive creature has been at work in this room, and that Mr. Garadeb inadvertently looked in the direction of something that gives its identity away. Yes, if we investigate thoroughly enough, we ought to find the answer. What did Mr. Garadeb turn to look at? It's here somewhere, we simply need to find it. Oh. What's this photograph? It appears to be from Mr. Garadeb's wedding. He looks very happy, doesn't he? He does, but you can't make out his bride. No, how unfortunate. Something must have struck the glass directly over the woman's face. I wonder what happened. Probably best not to delve too deeply there.
Take that!
There we go. You know, the bride's, let's say, shape looks a little familiar. The true nature of the beast that has run rampant here is revealed by that newlywed bride. Haha, women, am I right? Precisely, Mr. Naruhodo. No other explanation could possibly fit. Yes, this framed print pictures your wife, Mr. Garadeb. And while we will lament the fact that her face is obscured, we can still make out her mighty arms and note the considerable horsepower they must contain. Bah! I've sent you to the void, Mr. Naruhodo. Good luck! Haha! Oh, Indeed, surely any woman of such powerful constitution would be honored to be described as a beast. Honored might be stretching a point. Too late! The fact remains that the beast, which so clearly savaged this room, was your wife, Mr. Garadeb. Yeah! The chilling traces of a wild rampage are still very much in evidence. Well... Yet as we look around, the beast in question fails to present itself. Here we go. The poor, fragile, defenseless woman is besides herself. Well, I don't know about fragile. Oh, dear. Anyway, Mr. Sholmes is quite right. There's no sign of a Mrs. Garadeb anywhere. Yeah, the other side of his face I noticed too. A very distinct mark. But it seems there may be a clue as to her whereabouts. A clue that this maid is trying to hide. I wonder where Mr. Garadeb's wife could be. Let's take a look here. Wow, look at that. They've got matching rings. How weird. She's wearing a very large ring, look. Oh yes, a sunflower design with some rather nice embellishments. And it's on the ring finger of the left hand, which means it's surely a wedding ring. It looks like it's on there for life, too. I can't imagine it would slide off a finger that size. That's something to think, Mr. Naruhodo, not to say. Do you know Mr. Garadeb's wife in the photograph had a ring very much like this one? It was a large sunflower design as well. Really? You have a great memory for these things. Huh, a large sunflower wedding ring. It's quite a coincidence that they have the same ring, isn't it? She's his wife. She's his wife. She's pretending to be a maid for some reason. Maybe they're into that. I don't know.
Take that!
Your wedding ring gives us a handsome clue to the beast's current whereabouts. Ah! Indeed it does. That flower band gleaming on your finger gives you away. For it is identical to the one shown on the hand of Mr. Garadeb's bride in this photographic print. In other words, you are no ordinary household maid. Ah! No. You are Mr. Garadeb's lucky bride. You are Mrs. Garadeb herself. Oh my word! What a twist. What an unexpected turn of events. Well, jolly fine detecting, sir. As you rightly surmise, this is the wife, yes, my Joan. Rather let herself go, you might say, but she was a ballycocker back— Ah! It would appear that you didn't live in the most comfortable of circumstances. After all, you are a retired army man, yet you are in the business of renting out rooms. Tsk. I would assume, therefore, you have insufficient means to employ a maid. Would that be correct? It's not right, I tell you. I was 2nd Lieutenant of the 3rd Regiment. A man has his pride, don't you know? By golly, it's a sorry thing when a chap can't even afford to have a single maid in his employ. Yes, here in London, one is rather judged. A household cannot be considered worthy of society if it employs no staff at all. Though, in my considered opinion, such concerns about appearances are a folly. You mean Mr. Garadeb has his wife work as his maid? Hey, don't kink-shame them. If that's their thing, that's their thing. Wearing a maid dress is a perfectly fine thing to do. Precisely. Am I right, Mr. Garadeb? Only in company, obviously, but listen here. This must remain a secret. Tip-top secret, please. The raging wife of Mr. Garadeb. Solved it. Alright, so I doubt his wife was gnawing on the carpet. Now, Mr. Garadeb. Oh yeah, it's his wife. Nope. We've already seen what's causing him his problem, right? Mr. Sholmes is quite something. He still called Mr. Garadeb's wife a beast. Yes, as a woman, that feels rather uncomfortable. But Mrs. Garrett is standing beside her husband as we speak. In other words, he hasn't lost his beloved at all, has he? Oh, how true. So perhaps that supporting arm that seems to be propping up his head has some other significance then. According to Mr. Sholmes, Mr. Garrett's pain is tangible, though. What could that pose of his really signify? Let's take a look around the back here. Oh my, look at that bright red mark. Gosh, that's quite something, and clearly made by somebody's hand. Yes, Mr. Garrett has been slapped on the face, it seems, hard. I've never seen such a clearly defined mark. Whoever could have done such a thing? Give him the old slappy. Well, there's a very limited number of candidates, I'd say.
Take that!
Your head weighs heavy on your shoulders, the pain you feel being revealed by that slapped cheek. And of course, the deliverer of that impressive mark on your cheek that refuses to fade. Was you, Madame Joan Garrett? Well, yes. You have been desperate to hide that slap mark on your cheek, sir. Ah. That's not what 5-finger discount means, Celestial. Okay, that's a euphemism for, other stuff. How the blazes? How did you work that out, man? Nothing escapes the notice of one trained in the art of observation, my dear fellow. That's why you haven't looked directly at us even once, and also your face looks weird from a front profile. To keep your other side from view. Well, Now, let us proceed to the next conundrum. Why were you subjugated to such a violent slap? In other words, we must ask ourselves what caused Madame Garrett to fly into a rage. And we need only follow the direction of your gaze to find the answer. Didn't Mr. Sholmes say that the bills were all for lion fodder? Yes, but now we've established that the lion never existed. Which can only mean that the thing responsible for gobbling up all that food was Mr. Gyarados. Mr. Naruhodo, she's a person, not a thing. Yes, well, she's also a person who gave her husband a mighty slap around the face. One so hard it left a perfect hand mark, in fact. Yes, why would a woman want to hit her husband with such force, I wonder? I'd love to know the answer to that question. Looking at all these bills, it certainly amounts to a great deal of food. Meat and potatoes by the cartload, wasn't it? Well, looking at the two of them, you can tell immediately who eats the lion's share in this household. Come on, stop being mean to women, Ryunosuke. Well, at least we're no longer talking about an actual lion anymore. Uh-oh. What's this? Ah, someone must be reading this book at the moment. There's a bookmark here, too. Mr. Garrett is clearly an avid reader. Oh, wait a minute. I don't think this is a bookmark. Oh, no, so it isn't. It's a note written in a woman's hand. Oh, James, I love you. Yours, Mary. And look next to the signature here. Lip marks made with lipstick. Oh, what a passionate and romantic gesture. Don't get any ideas, Susato-san. Oh dear, I'm sorry. So this bookmark is actually a love note then, huh? There are a lot of books stacked up on the shelf here. Look, all novels that I've never heard of. It would appear somebody has purchased them all from a second-hand bookshop. I think Mr. Garrett is something of a book lover. Anyways, it's definitely the love note. Mr. Garrett, you've been caught cheating?
Take that!
That's not cool. Your wife seems pretty nice. What's the problem? Yes, it's the love note that has given rise to the pain you suffer. Oh, James, I love you. Yours, Mary. Passionate indeed. Perhaps the center of this note, a certain Miss Mary, is the fly in the ointment here. Ah! But I don't know the bally woman. You don't know her? That note wasn't written to me. It was just in the book. I don't know how it got there. It was just in there, you say? That's right. That's why I've been saying. Ah! No wonder she's been doing that the whole time. She wasn't dodging questions. She was just pissed off. A likely story. Now listen here, Joan old thing. I explained at the time. I bought the book at the second-hand place, and the note must already have been in there. So, the previous owner of the book was using the note as a bookmark, you mean? That's right. That's what I've been saying. Ah! That tea's still hot, huh? A likely story. For heaven's sake, Lupin, look at the name. It's written to James. My name, in case you've forgotten, is John. Ah! A likely story? Are you questioning my name now? And there we have it. Arouse the suspicions of the female heart, and you unleash a beast with a most ferocious bite. Ugh. Now, in a final fit of rage, the ferocious beast carried out one last unimaginable attack. Well, she wasn't eating the carpet. Yeah, her cheek jiggle physics are pretty good. Look at them go. Look at that. Yeah, they have a sun and moon. She's the sun, and her ring is a sunflower. His face is shaped like a moon, and he's got a moon ring, sort of. Nani? That's not correct. But surely Mrs. Garrett didn't eat the carpet. No, of course not. But there doesn't seem to be any doubt that the state of disarray that this room is in is a result of her wild temper. Mr. Shine and Mrs. Bright. That's a good one. No, that's true. So, this is the last part of Mr. Sholm's seduction that we need to fix. We need only to follow Mrs. Garrett's gaze, and that will tell us the real answer. Alright, let's see what we can see. Yes! This is an advertising handbill for the circus. Batty's Circus. It's in a nearby park. Isn't this the same as the one we saw earlier? The one that was folded up in Mrs. Garrett's pocket. Perhaps they're very great circus lovers? It couldn't be that the Hungry Lion is somehow involved again here, could it? Oh dear, I do hope not. Ah, so many cakes. Is that all you can think about? Well, look at them, Mr. Naruhodo. There is a mountain of them, and they all look so delicious. It's more of a tower than a mountain, I'd say. It's a mountain, and it's my hope that one day, in our very homeland, I will be able to perform the tea ceremony at the foot of such a mountain. It's definitely a tower. This looks like a very old candlestick, doesn't it? The base looks too small. Sure, it's very unstable. It looks to me like even the slightest knock would make it topple over. Oh dear, that would be dangerous. Wait, take a closer look at this. There's one candle missing. Yes, I didn't notice that before. Why is that, I wonder? Why is one candle of the three missing from its holder? Well, I saw it earlier. It's right here, in fact. Check this out. The carpet here has been ripped to shreds. Yes, and according to Mr. Sholm's deduction, the tears match those made by an Indian lion's teeth, exactly. Oh, look here. What is it? If you look closely at the edge, you can see scorch marks. Oh yes, so you can. In that case, perhaps the carpet wasn't eaten in the normal sense at all. Let's rethink this with that in mind. Bum, 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 bum. Can I observe the candlestick? No. Okay. I'm I'm just gonna present the candlestick.
Take that!
Yeah, good. Alright, let's deliver the final blow to British Punch and Judy here. Yes, to explain the dire state of the carpet, we need to only look at the candlestick. Most illuminating, my dear fellow, and of course, the only way possible out of this logical labyrinth. The house I grew up in had a wool carpet in front of the wood stove. Wool doesn't spread fire, but it does scorch, so we had a bunch of black spots on it from the embers. Huh. I've never lived anywhere with a wood stove. Not on the moon, of course. And, you know, for my castles, I think I prefer electric. Yes, the remnants of a ferocious attack in which the carpet was devoured are clearly visible. Indeed, they are. The scorch marks at the edge clearly give the truth away. Scorch marks? It would appear that this room was the scene of a little marital altercation. A domestic... No. I'm going to report here for a domestic, Mrs. Geradev. Mrs. Geradev's mighty arm muscles left an impression not only on her husband's face, but on the entire room. The force of her strike caused a candle to fall from the holder. And in seconds, the carpet was alight, and the whole corner of the room in flames. Yes, For the most part, ferocious beast in this world is neither a violent lion nor a vengeful woman, but fire. And in this room, that ferocious beast bared its claws and ran amok. Eloquently put, my dear fellow, as... So you see, there's but one conclusion here. Whee! After the sparks of marital discord flew, this room was the scene of a fire. Oh, he's standing up. Mr. Shulm, sir. I salute you! There he goes. Aw. She's so strong. The carpet was scorched by a small fire. We solved the case. Deduction complete. Elementary. It's these dashed long winter nights, you know. Nothing to do but read in front of the fire. Luckily, there's a jolly good second-hand bookshop just around the corner. Buy all my old novels there. And in the pages of one particular novel, you discovered some rather illicit material. For which your wife admonished you harshly, it seems. Don't know about admonished. Demolished might be a rather closer to the mark. And beast is most certainly an Ah! Here we go again. And the carpet, was that destroyed by fire when a candle fell on the floor? Afraid to say it was. Happened in the blink of an eye, you know. The whole place filled with smoke. Couldn't see a bally thing. I was caught between the old stick's rage and the raging flames. You painted a torrid picture, sir. One that would have been most entertaining. That's sympathy for you. Didn't take long for the fire to spread, of course. The bally furniture started going up as well. We've had to hide the mess behind that screen for the time being. Does look like a pretty big mess. Over there, Mr. Geradev? Well, you have nothing more to hide now, if you'll allow me. Wow, that is a big problem. Had all my favorite old novels in that case. But as soon as the fire got hold of them, that was it. Whoosh, up in smoke. Gosh. Then the wife started hurling things at me. What a terrible sight it must have been. There was I, back up against the window, under heavy enemy fire, incendiary books coming 10 to the dozen. Worst of it was, I lost my favorite book called The Lion's Pride. The Lion's Pride? Oh yes, your notorious love of big cats coming through again. I assure you the title didn't influence my choice in the slightest. So the poor man really did lose something dear to him as a result of the ferocious beast's rampage. Mr. Sholmes' deductions turned out to be correct once again. It can only be described as a great British wonder. I tell you, it was total carnage. Flames everywhere and the old stick in fuel fettle. Out of interest, what time of day was that? I'm not sure I can remember. It was 2 days ago now, let's see. Around 5 o'clock, I think. I'm gonna take a stab in the dark now. What if she threw a fucking knife at him and it flew out the window and stabbed that lady? Maybe a bit too wild, huh? So at exactly the same time as a terrifying incident was unfolding outside your window on the street below. Huh, even more terrifying on the inside, I can assure you. The whole Blighty could have been flattened outside my window at the moment, and I wouldn't have noticed a dashed thing. Oh, really? Well, got us a whole bunch of nothing. Mr. Sholmes. Yes, Mr. Naruhodo, what can I do for you? Well, I think we've got to the bottom of Mr. Garredeb's situation now. But what does it have to do with Mr. Natsume's circumstances? I can't help you there, I'm afraid. What? My dear fellow, if you recall, I did say as much from the outset. I warned you that although I knew that the retired army man may be hiding something, I could not be sure whether his secret would prove to be of relevance or not. I just knew you were going to say that. Ah ha 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 ha. Now, Mr. Naruhodo, you mustn't lose heart. Bear in mind that all things fall into one of only two categories, those relevant to the case and those not. That makes no sense to me. Well, no matter. It is of far greater importance that you make up your mind now. Sorry? Visiting hours at the prison will soon be over. Oh no, is it that time already? If we're to accept Mr. Natsume's case, we have official paperwork to attend to. So that's it. No more time to think. Perhaps you'd like to betake yourselves to bidding us farewell now. I must prepare supper for Mr. Garredeb. Oh yes, I'm so sorry. Thank you both very much for your time. Soseki-san will be waiting for us. I'm going to have to give him an answer. Well, I guess we've got nothing else to do. Gotta see what's up. Wait, why are we here? It's time, Mr. Naruhodo. We must hurry back to the prison. Yes, I know. Let's hail a Oh. What's the matter? It looks like something's going on over there in front of the Garredeb's house. Hmm? Oh. Who? Wow. That's a face. I know. Hang on. I gotta come up with a voice for this guy. I know thee not, old man. Fall to thy prayers. Who are you calling an old man, you rum-looking niminy-piminy? He's calling him gay, chat. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. His rod does look like a jester cap. Who's this Horatio fella, eh? What are you on about? Excuse me? Eh, what the? Who are you now? I'm sorry, it just looked as though there might be some problem here. And my associate here, Mr. Ryunosuke Naruhodo, is a lawyer, you see. Eh, a lawyer? What? If I can be of any assistance, I'd be happy to help. I'm from Japan, but I have studied English law. Tisk. Fine, I'll be on my way for today. But you mark my words. This ain't over yet. What is this? Pose? Get thee to a nunnery. Do I look like a bloomin' nun to you? Oh, I hate that face. What the fuck? I do hope you're not injured. Oh, fair Eastern maiden, thou art so gentle, thank you. What was that all about? There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. I'm not Horatio either. Forgive the inquiry, sir, but are you a lodger here? In the Garrideb residence? Oh, fair Eastern maiden, thou art so right. Yes, I do dwell in this humble abode. Mr. Garrideb mentioned that he had another lodger, didn't he? This must be the man. Do you happen to know the other lodger who lives on the first floor? Yeah, that's the face. Yes, a gentleman named Natsume. Oh, more worthy a polemist in my battle of words now could there be. Sorry, battle, did you say? Who is the stronger, Hamlet or Macbeth? Mr. Natsume and I sparred long into the night. I see. They're like death battle, or Macbeth versus. I don't fully understand, but it seems Mr. Natsume and this gentleman are acquaintances at least. So, fair maiden, so good gentleman, I can tarry here no longer. Fairly well. Well, he's fucking gone. I didn't really understand him, but I think he's returned to his room. It seems he's unaware of what's happened to Mr. Natsume, so he can't really help us. With Soseki-san and that man as lodgers, the Garrideb house is certainly full of eccentrics. Anyway, I'll go find a carriage. Yes, I'm sure Mr. Natsume is eagerly awaiting our return. Let's hope we can get to the prison before visiting hours are over. February 19th, 6:31 p.m. Local prison, cell 9. Hello. Oh, it's you! You're here! You came! Locum student Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. I can't believe you came back! I'm so touched! We are so sorry to have kept you waiting, Mr. Natsume. Oh no, think nothing of it. Relax. If I were a cat, I would purr with pleasure at the company of such fine compatriots. Noble, nurturing, never-failing Nipponese. Oh, now, let's not get carried away. Oh, I quite agree. There's nothing more reassuring than the familiarity of one's native land. On the other hand... Oh, hi, Sholmes. It is through friendship transcending international borders that one truly appreciates the fact. Such is my belief, at least. It's you! The miserable, rotten spy! The Herlock Sholmes! Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing here? I have no intention of doing anything per se. Save observing, of course. Whatever do you mean, Mr. Sholmes? Well, having encountered some curious reading material in that gloomful room, and having unmasked the secret identity of that eccentric pair, I decided I should drop in on my way home to see how our divested friend is faring. Gloomful room? At least your accommodation here offers a window, my dear fellow. In that sense, it is the superior room. Anyway, I must commend you on your taste in books. My day has been a delight, and it cost me not a penny. Ah, you! How dare you, Herlock Sholmes! I've had it. I'm through. I'm at the end of my rope. I should never have come to Great Britain. It was a terrible mistake. Haunted by spirits in those accursed lodgings. No doubt my luck will be cursed in tomorrow's trial as well. My whole life is bedamned! He's really dramatic. What are you thinking, Mr. Naruhodo? He mentioned that once before, didn't he? That his lodgings were cursed, I mean. And there is much truth in Mr. Mustache's words. What? Cursed is a wholly appropriate description, I would say, for the man's lodgings, and indeed for tomorrow's trial. What's that supposed to mean? Mr. Natsume, what did you mean by what you just said now? About the trial tomorrow being cursed? Oh no, why are you looking so grave? You're making me nervous. I was just getting carried away, that's all. I didn't mean anything by it. Oh, I see. That's really agitated him. You don't mean the trial really is cursed somehow? Are you referring to the prosecutor? The Reaper of the Bailey? The Reaper? Oh no, what do you mean? Please tell me, summarize it succinctly in 16 salient words. No defendant has ever survived a trial in which the Reaper stands for the prosecution. Ever. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, exactly 16. Good job, Ryunosuke. Oh my goodness, can it really be true? That was 16 words exactly! Yesterday, Mr. Naruhodo successfully defended someone against the Reaper. But then, after the trial was over... Hey, we don't have to tell him the part where he burned to death. The defendant passed away in unusual circumstances. Mr. McGilden... What? Ah, I am impressed, Miss Fusato. You have an eye for detail. Actually, the Lord Chief Justice told us. Mr. Sholmes, surely it can't be that having failed to have the accused convicted, Lord Van Zieks killed the man himself? Oh no, why would you ever think that? Why would you ever think that, considering every defendant who gets not guilty just dies? Oh no, he couldn't have, surely. Ah ha 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 ha! You have some wonderful notions. Sorry? The man isn't a mass murderer, he's a court prosecutor, my dear fellow. Oh, yes. Why, of course he is. Ah, of course he is, then why are you trying to scare me? It could be said, however, that the real truth about the man is even more terrifying than your hypothesis. What on earth do you mean by that? Tell me about this Reaper man. Van Zieks is a quite exceptional man. However, in London courts of law, exceptional does not equate to winning every case without exception. Ah, that's good! Soseki-san looks like he's going to cry tears of joy. As you are no doubt aware, in a British criminal trial, there's both a judge and a jury. The judge officiates based on the letter of the law, whilst the jury offers public opinion on common sense. It is an excellent system, whereby the defendant's guilt is considered from several points of view. However, public opinion in particular is somewhat easily manipulated. Right. Criminals, and corrupt lawyers for that matter, can use it to their advantage. By any means at their disposal, contriving evidence, calling imposters as witnesses, and so on. By such underhand means, those who would want to are able to sway the jury. Which means that even in the light of irrefutable evidence, the prosecution can fail. But it means the wrong verdict can be passed. And sadly is from time to time, my dear madam, it is simply the reality of the situation. And that's all right. However, those indicted by Lord Van Zieks cannot escape justice. Their fate is sealed. Oh my. Though the adjudication may see them leave the courtroom with their freedom, within months they all disappear. It is most striking. Disappear? But how? Ah, by all manner of misfortune, sir. Perhaps they are trampled under a passing carriage. Perhaps they fall into the Thames and drown. Perhaps they are suddenly overcome by a raging fever, or perhaps attacked by a highwayman. Oh, no. All examples of the reality of events here in London, I'm afraid, Mr. Naruhodo. Huh. It's like some Final Destination stuff. Huh. I knew it. I'm a dead dodo done for doomed. Well, how do we defeat fate? When you said accursed lodgings before, you were referring to your room at Mr. Garadev's house, I presume. Do you mean to say you believe the place is cursed? It's been a year now since I came to Great Britain, but I'd only been in London a week before I started to notice strange feelings in myself. That didn't take long then. Everywhere I looked, there were foreign faces staring at me, laughing behind my back. I was sure people were talking about me. I started to become nervous about going outside. They were always staring at me all the time, from dawn till dusk. So I shut myself away in my room, but even that didn't help. The fear wouldn't go away. You must have been very lonely having been away from your homeland for such a long time. I've had to move a number of times, most recently to that room on Briar Road a week ago now. Yes, why did you choose there? It seems a little inconvenient. The rent is cheap. I have so little money, it appealed to me straight away. Of course, I asked why it was so affordable. The landlord just simpered and said, "The room is cursed." Oops! He quickly tried to cover his mistake, but it was too late, so I told him, "If you have something to say, then say it, but if not, don't mention it in the first place." Yes, well said. But it was true. It was all true. You mean the room really is cursed then? Ever since I moved into that windowless hellhole, my sleep has been plagued with nightmares. I awake feeling as though I'm being choked to death. And in my waking hours, people are stabbed in front of me as I walk down the street. I'm branded a killer, thrown in prison. Nobody wants to know me. I'm surrounded by scary, sinister spirits. I love this guy's poses so much. If only there was someone, just one person on my side. Can no one find it in his or her heart to believe in me? Really, no one at all? To believe. Yes, to believe. Tell me about believing in things. Mr. Sholmes. Ah, me, Mr. Naruhodo? Pray, what can I do for you? It's about the case on the SS Buria, if you recall. The Buria. Ah, that case. The one with the snake. He's really hung up on the snake. Need to go to Ogre Street and find a thug with a heart of gold and a fantastic hat. That sounds like a great idea. He'd probably become my buddy for life or something. Well, yes. At the time, I was a suspect, but you believed in me and listened to my side of the story. And you helped us to investigate. I did I? Interesting. What I want to know is, why? Why did you believe me? I see, yes. You mean... because you were a grimly dressed, shady Eastern fellow found with a victim in a locked room? Well, if you like, yes. I'm a little surprised that the answer requires explanation, my dear fellow. It's quite simple, really. You said I didn't do it. But I could have been lying. Surely you must have had your doubts. You must have suspected me a little. I think perhaps you have misunderstood. I neither recall believing in you, nor in that which you were telling me. What? You see, the only things I believe in are those I choose to believe in. What do you mean, Mr. Sholmes? I make up my own mind about what is to be believed and what is not. If I should like to believe in something, I do. The circumstances can hang as far as I'm concerned. But I could have betrayed your trust. In that case, I should have made an elementary error of judgment, nothing more. Betrayal of trust is an overused excuse, in my opinion. Oh, I like this. I like this explanation a lot. Meaning, whether or not one should trust another is, in the final analysis, down to oneself. It is a matter of whether or not one can trust oneself. Yes, he's right! He's right, locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire! Whether or not I can believe myself. Oh, he's thinking about his boyfriend again. A defense lawyer is only as good as his faith in his client. And that comes down to how much faith he has in himself. You were so right, Kazuma. So true, bestie. I like how this kind of turns that saying from the first 3 games on its head, where Mia always told Phoenix to believe in his client no matter what, right? It's kind of turning that on its head by saying, well, first you have to make your own mind up about what you believe in, right? Well, my dear fellows, it is time we were leaving, I believe. Already? Visiting hours are over. The guard will be here shortly to escort us out. There is a restaurant near here that serves excellent trout. Would you care to join me? Oh dear, there's never enough time, is there? Mr. Natsume, if you'd like, in the trial tomorrow, I'd be happy to represent you. He's gonna cry. Locum student Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. As I said, I only experienced the British courtroom for the first time yesterday. And although the man I was representing was found not guilty, I lost sight of something crucial. Something crucial? What to believe in? The defendant, justice, or the truth? How to believe, even. But I think I've finally worked it out. I've decided I must believe in myself above all else. To trust my instincts. Yes, Mr. Naruhodo. And my instincts are telling me that you, Mr. Natsume, are innocent of this crime. And it's imperative that we prove that in court. Locum student Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. I will fight for your innocence until the bitter end, with every weapon available to me. So I hope you'll permit me to represent you tomorrow. As I said when we first met, I'd like to entrust my fate to someone who will listen to me in my native tongue. Of course, Mr. Natsume. It would be fair to say, Mr. Naruhodo, that your mind was, in many ways, made up from the outset. You merely needed the events of today to fully realize it. Yes, I think you're right about that. It's been a roundabout journey. Truly been a roundabout journey, eh, Gyro? But I got there in the end. Lesson number 4, believe in yourself. Miss Susato, yes? Would you be willing to stand by my side tomorrow and help me in court? Absolutely. As I said this morning, you may consider me your personal judicial assistant. The shocking events of yesterday's trial still weigh heavily on my mind, but it's time to stop looking backwards. Kazuma believed in me, and Mr. Sholmes believes in me now too. So it's time that I learn to believe in myself. Soseki-san has no one. He's all alone, so it's my job to help him, to fight in his corner. Tomorrow, in the courtroom, with all the strength I can muster. To be continued. Tomorrow. Yep, we're gonna take a break and continue tomorrow, chat room, for the exciting courtroom drama. I am really loving this case so far. All the characters have been really fun. Punch and Judy, the weird royal dude who showed up for like a second, that I'm sure some people take screen caps of and maybe make funny comparisons, and then I'll smite them if I have to. Yeah, this is super good. This is definitely my like, easily I can say, unless like the ending is just totally terrible somehow, this is my favorite new Ace Attorney game in a very long time, and I am loving it so much. I'm super excited to read more tomorrow with all of you, my lovely minions, so look forward to it, and if you liked what you watched, consider joining up with the Discord, where you can keep up with everything, including when I announce streams. You can be there from the moment it happens. And yeah, thanks everybody so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Yeah, finishing up the case tomorrow, I think. So I'll see you then, okay? Good night, minions.